immediately. The dredge line goes in, but it's Nautilus who goes down. He did blow his flash, but he didn't even move because he got taken out so fast. I want to start the fight is the main question. Sion is not. There's no teleport available. He's asking to hop in, but he goes over the ball breaker. The assault and battery goes down, but Masculine takes him out as now Demboys has arrived to the fight. Zenfrog's gonna get taken extremely low. The slow is there from the stretching yard. One Corgi snipe or Varus arrow away from going down.
He's going for it.
Masculine wants it. He wants the last shot. Ooh, Sion blocks over the wall.
The entire team wants it.
The piercing arrow gets it.
They're trying to rationalize their decision making. It's just not happening as Ryzen gets a little.
Oh my God!
Absolutely popped by Masklink. He's not done looking for the Zyra. He's still hunting.
Infinity Edge Trinity Force Corki. The exhaust comes out, but Zyra's still gonna go down for a double kill. Masculine short everything up as last fight of the game potentially comes out here. As Draven picks up the kill onto the Gnar, but Draven's already taken out the front line. The shuffle comes in. The rest of the team goes out. A double kill picked up for Draven. A quadra kill picked up for Draven. He would have gotten the Penta, but there's not enough opponents left. Hello and welcome to the first playoff match in the 2017 uLoL Campus Series. I am Tom Sierfoss, and joining me, as always, is Mark Zimmerman, who I bet is doing very well today.
You are correct. I'm doing great. I'm excited to get into the playoffs. It's always the most interesting time of the year, so I'm happy we're finally here.
Right, we're in playoffs now, which means that we don't need to read over the same tournament structure you've already heard 500 times ever again. But it might be handy to go over the playoff structure.
Right, so the playoffs are 4 separate single elimination tournaments divided by the conference North, South, East, and West.
And the winner of each of those conferences is going to go on to the live finals where, along with the BTN, they will fight to crown an overall uLoL champion.
It's do or die times, and teams will be giving it everything that they've got to make it to the finals because there's no do-overs anymore. You lose and you're out.
That's right, so it's going to be some cutthroat competition. Starting off with today, we're featuring a match from the Western Conference where it's going to be UCLA versus UCSB. Both of these teams are going to be 4-1 coming out of their group stage. UCLA, they lost to San Diego, whereas UCSB lost to UBC, which is not surprising.
Right, but the records aren't the only thing that these teams have in common. They were scrimmage partners last year and have played several games against each other, so they're relatively familiar with each other's play styles, but it's going to be interesting to see what they've come up with to try and get an edge now.
That's right. Now, both of these teams, like you said, they were scrimmage partners, although they have had a couple of roster swaps themselves. UCSB only has one returning member this year, which is a support player and their manager, Bardley Trying. He has high expectations for his team and hopes to recapture some of the initial success that they had during the 2015 rookie season.
Yeah, I mean, 2015 is the year to look at because last year they didn't even make it into the campus series, so they're going to try and make their mark this year against their good old enemies in UCLA.
That's right, but it's a tall order to fill because UCLA won a majority of those games they scrimmaged back in 2016. They've also restructured a part of their team. They're honing in on more of an aggressive do-dive play style.
Right, and UCLA told us that their real rivals are the other kind of title contenders in UCI and UBC, so they're confident they'll get a win against UCSB today, but they are still a little worried that it could be closer than it should be.
Yeah, this could be a very neck-and-neck kind of game. That's going to be really exciting because we've had a couple of one-sided games so far in the campus series, but playoffs times, like you said, it's do or die.
Right, so why don't we get into it? We'll take a look at the roster, starting with UCLA. In the top lane, it's 5MI, going to assume that's 5 miles. In the jungle positions, Emperor Ong. Mid lane is Wizard of Ors. AD carry, Light Sludge, and support A1 Baby, maybe Albie. We'll see.
We'll have to see. Maybe he'll be a baby, maybe he'll be an Albie in the bottom lane. But across the rift, we have UCSB. In the top lane, Liquor Kool-Aid. In the jungle, Silvati. Mid lane is Solaris. AD carry, can't carry, and their support is Bardley Trying.
Right. Another team with a lot of interesting names, Liquor Kool-Aid being the one I'm keeping my eye on there.
Well, it looks like we're going to keep our eyes on some picks and bans. We're about to hop into those for game number 1. Now, of course, we are on the live servers, Mark, so that does mean that we are going to be on patch 7.4. So there's been a couple of tweaks, but no really large changes in general.
Right, a lot of, 7.3 was kind of the patch nerf where all the top tiers were hit. This time, a lot smaller changes, also a lot of it more focused on itemization, so lethality as a whole was just a little less effective this patch. A lot of the top items were hit, but nothing too significant.
That's right. We've had a couple of tweaks to some of the more popular champions. Corki is potentially one of the ones we could see falling off a little bit. Maokai no longer has the impact damage from his saplings. Those are kind of the big overall changes, but of course in the campus series we've definitely seen a lot of target bans be the way to go about attacking your opponents. In this case, the Anivia ban straight out of the gate from UCLA.
Right, and UCSB is going to retaliate with the Zyra ban. So targeting the bot lane, one team's targeting the mid lane. We'll have to see if they keep doing that. Graves banned out. A lot of people think he's the best jungler now on the current patch with the Rengar and Kha'Zix nerfs that came in 7.3. He's just someone who benefits a lot from those lethality builds, but he might be slightly less effective on 7.4 now that a couple of those items have been hit.
Right, a lot of those items have been changed. Ghostblade got the nerf bat. Edge of Night had been hot fixed to have a slight nerf as well. The Last Whisper no longer builds out of the pickaxe. Instead, you have to hold the longsword and have a larger sum of a upgrade cost on that one right away. So we'll see if the lethality affects anything whatsoever. But Bard, no surprise, being banned away from Bardley Trying. The Corki, despite some slight nerfs on this patch, has been taken away, as well as the Camille, who, well, still Camille.
Yeah, anytime that a player has their name kind of, or a champion in their name, you know that you probably shouldn't give it to him. Matt famously had Bard Romance, and people were like, all right, maybe we shouldn't give that to him. UCLA going to grab the Thresh first. Pretty interesting first pick, obviously targeting the support position pretty heavily after those bans came in.
That may be one of those things where this is specifically a player comfort choice, where if you go for the Thresh because Albie or a baby, whatever his name is, Albie I'm going to go with here, is more of a Thresh player, that may be something you want to take away. But if it's also a contested pick between him and Bardley Trying, it makes a lot of sense. But on the side of UCSB, they're just going to go with a more powerful pick up the Maokai, still kind of the dominant tank in the top lane, although he doesn't have that impact damage from his saplings anymore. And surprisingly, the Sivir coming through as the first AD carry pick, despite still having that Jhin and Varus available.
Right, Sivir's kind of been going up in priority recently on a number of different teams, and obviously with the nerfs to the lethality, maybe she's taken another step up, and she does set up UCSB to make a really strong standard team comp. As soon as you get the Maokai and the Sivir, that's the beginnings of a great team fighting team comp, so we'll have to see how they round that out. UCLA going to continue on with some power picks. They take the Kha'Zix and the Nautilus.
Yeah, it's a new patch, same top lane picks. It looks like as the Nautilus and the Maokai will continue to go head-to-head. And the Kha'Zix, like you said, slight tweaks to it in 7.3. They weren't the biggest nerfs overall. With the Graves banned away, though, it is probably one of the more popular junglers to pick up.
Right, so UCSB is going to answer with the Janna. Sivir Janna used to be a really strong lane, not quite as strong anymore with a lot of the changes that came in with the kind of rise of the more pokey, mage-heavy supports, but with at least, Zyra banned away, that's one of her most annoying matchups here. Hopefully she's going to be able to get something off the ground as UCSB goes even more defensive. Yeah. Grabs the Ivern as well.
This is very indicative of they want something they can carry extremely hard from the mid lane. Otherwise, it's going to be all up to can't carry Sivir, and it's in his name that he can't carry. So it's going to be a very interesting composition. Very heavy, like you said, heavy defense, heavy utility. The Ivern and the Janna kind of compared together. They can definitely keep a target alive for a very long time.
Right, and so we'll have to see what they choose to go with their last pick. Probably going to be some kind of high damage mage. On the flip side, UCLA grabs Karma, an overall very strong champion, can poke in lane, can become a great defensive tool later in the game. Overall strong pick. As we see, they pair it with the Vayne, a very famous counter pick into Sivir, one that doesn't quite crush it in laning phase, but once you get 6 and you get your first part, the Cutlass, you get to slow the Sivir down and hopefully just assassinate her basically. As no surprise, UCSB rounds it out with Cassiopeia.
That makes a lot of sense. So there's going to be a lot of powerful pickups from multiple carry positions on both teams. So as we wind up taking a look at the draft summary recap overall, you could see that both of these teams are eventually going to want to fight, but there's also going to be a high potential late game threat from both sides.
Right, and both teams kind of have a strong late game here, really, with the Vayne becoming a huge threat. You have the Karma to kind of support it and let it run wild in the team fights. And on the flip side, UCSB has a ton of shielding to let the Cassiopeia be fairly free hitting, trying to burn down the front line that's going to be coming in for UCLA. All
right, Mark, so I got to ask you, because I ask you every single time around the desk, who are you going to give game 1 to?
It's tough, actually. This is a very interesting one. I'm going to go with UCLA just because I've heard a little bit better things about them overall, and with both team comps being fairly common or fairly equal in terms of strength, I think I'm going to go with the team that I think is stronger overall.
All right, well, you got UCLA. I'm going to go with UCSB just because I always like kind of an underdog story. And coming into this one, they didn't qualify last year. They made it to the playoffs this time around, so something's got to click. The only team they lost to is UBC. So you got our predictions, but of course, we love to hear yours. So get on Twitter and let us know by tweeting either hashtag UCLA or hashtag UCSB at uLoL and see if you're on my side or Mark's side and see who wants to get it right.
My side.
I don't know
My side.
All right, guys, we're going to be getting to game number 1 in just a second. But like I said, this is going to be a very interesting matchup. These guys, previous scrim partners. UCLA has a very long history in the campus series, back when it was Ivy Law on the CSL. UCSB, definitely looking for something to prove. They restructured their entire team. They have 4 entirely new members. This could potentially be a very exciting matchup here. And it's only the first round of playoffs.
Right, I mean, this is like insane to think this is a first round kind of matchup, but it just shows we're going to have a great playoff. As we see UCLA going for a grouped up invade in the bot lane, but UCSB looks like they're prepared for this one, scouted it out with an early ward. Now they're mirroring an invade on the top side as well.
Yeah, very good foresight for them to put that ward down to spot the invade and then immediately shift to the opposite side of the map so they can do the exact same thing. So while both teams are just going to take their grand tour of Summoner's Rift, they will be putting deep wards down on both sides just to spot out where those junglers are going to start. And you've talked about this before, Mark. That's extremely important for the team that's going to be against the Ivern to figure out where he's going to be walking in his first path.
Right. Well, the other thing we talked about was the fact these guys were scrim partners. It seems like UCSB was prepared for this level 1, whether or not they've done it elsewhere in the Challenger series or the campus series, or if it's something that they had seen from scrims. But they basically scouted that invade out right away with some early wards and seemed pretty prepared for what UCLA was going to do level 1.
And so both of these teams just backing away into their own jungles. They are going to be spotted out on both sides by some wards, so UCSB's bottom lane will be spotted on the ward as they're pretending to go for that blue buff there, but at the same time, Silvati on the opposite side is Ivern. Will get spotted out by 5MI as the Nautilus is going to the top side, so it looks like just by walking past that Ivern, he's not going to be doing any sort of shenanigans early on with the opposing blue buff.
Ren, that's a big thing to do against an Ivern, is make sure you have some vision on where that guy is, because he can do, like you said, some shenanigans between moving around for different buffs. He can, get two smites off very quickly like that, or set himself up and then go for a smite invade. So We'll have to see what Emperor Ong tries to do. As we see, Sivaldi is going to go for that invade, but he is going to bump into the Kazakhs who spotted this out, and he could end up in a lot of trouble here with him grabbing the blast cone over. Is he going to be able to hop onto him here?
I don't know. The blast cone goes over. He did have the smite available. The shield will keep himself alive for now. The flash away from Sivaldi, though, as Nautilus did come in for the collapse, though he is going to want to get in the root crawler down just to stun him out, but the flash throw for Emperor Ong will secure first blood. So UCLA, they hit that one red like a book.
Yeah, they had the ward out there, and then a great collapse off both the mid and the top lane, being able to punish that invade coming in for Sivaldi, and now we might lose his red buff as well.
Ooh, that's really, really bad for the side of UCSB, because Ivern's going to be starting for that jungle invade style and keeping his smite available. That red buff was still alive, so now Emperor Ong going to be stealing this one. He still has his smite available. He's dropping kind of low, but he'll be fine. That's a buff steal and first blood for Kazakhs.
Yeah, it's an awful start for Ivern, and overall, I mean, he'll recover. I mean, Ivern doesn't get shut down that easily, but he's used to being a little bit ahead with these kind of cheeky invades that he can go for here. So this is going to be really rough to play from, as well as the fact that, you know, his mid and top laner were able to get assists against him as well. So as soon as they get their first recall off, they'll be up a little bit of gold. Kazakhs with the first blood is a great champion to get that first blood on. He can snowball the game.
And that's one of the conflicting jungle styles here. We talked about the slight tweaks to some of the lethality items on this patch, but Kazakhs still kind of being one of those premier junglers. It's the reason why Graves was banned away in its entirety. Going for a completely different side with the Ivern on the opposite side. Sure, he will still wind up being as effective as possible when he gets the redemption. Maybe Nathene's Unholy Grail and becomes kind of a supportive jungler. But if you're going to have to contend with that Kazakhs raining down pain upon the Cassio and the Sivir, and you know, potentially even this Maokai's taking a lot of damage in the top lane off that assist from the Nautilus. But just those carries that you want to wait to scale up into later stages of the game, Kaz is going to be a very effective champion at shutting that down early.
Yeah, and I mean, Graves is one of the best counter picks into Ivern because you're able to clear very quickly, shut down a lot of those invades, and then you're pretty annoying against Daisy, who you just keep knocking back with your auto attacks. So with the ban coming in against Graves, it's no surprise to see the Ivern picked up, but this is definitely a not ideal start, to say the least.
No, and even in that, mentioned before, that solo lane there, Liquid Kool-Aid, just kind of getting bullied around by the Nautilus early on. It's kind of how the lane goes. You don't normally see Maokai dropping super low in those circumstances, whereas UCSB on the bottom side of the map too, Can't Carry getting harassed a little bit by Albi's Thresh in the bottom lane. But a Janna lane usually doesn't promote the most aggression, but as I say that, Albi's going to get super aggressive here, gets the flay off, but will wind up missing the hook here. The turnaround is there, the exhaust goes on to Albi, Lightsless has to use the heal, will get the condemn against the wall. Now Can't Carry is going to be the one that's in a little bit of trouble. Thresh Lantern is there to make sure his AD carry is safe, but in comes Ivern, but there is the Kazakhs ready and matching that gank here. Level 3 Kazakhs compared to the level 4 of Ivern, though, they are going to force back UCSB.
Overall, nothing too much happens, but they do come out with a summoner advantage on the side of UCSB, able to get the heal out of Light Sludge, who use it to keep Thresh alive. And this bot lane is one that I've actually seen play out quite a lot. I had coached a player who did like to play quite a bit of Vayne in Piglet, and he would often pick it into Sivir, and it's actually not a great lane often early in the game. You do have to play it super aggressive like this, otherwise the Sivir push and Ricochet just keeps chunking you out, and it can be a little annoying until you're able to get some lifesteal, and that's really when the matchup turns around in Vayne's favor, with the Cutlass usually being the first purchase, also allowing you to start all-inning a lot heavier. But against a Janna, that can be really difficult, and if you're not actually able to open up onto the Sivir, Sivir tends to be a little bit more useful in team fights just with her utility and able to contribute from far away, as we see UCLA continuing to play aggressive, though. Yeah,
Albi actually flashing in, but Light Sludge is going to get the condemn against the wall as Sivir used her own heal as well, so Can't Carry will wind up burning that summoner spell, but still the continued aggression in the bottom lane and the top lane now as 5MI is going to get jumped on here, trying to take the Maokai down with him. Is it going to wind up working? The Karma teleports in, the shield is there, they turn it around, and it's a 2-for-0 in favor of UCLA.
The mid lane teleport comes up huge. They're able to turn that completely around. Instead of being a 1-for-0, it's a 2-for-0 for UCLA as they continue to snowball this advantage. Now UCSB roaming down to the bot side, trying to get something going on the flip side of the map. They might be able to get onto Light Sludge here.
He did want to get any slowed from the Zephyr. The Tornado's going to land. The Miasma's down, so Light Sludge is stuck, and he's going to wind up going down. Can't Carry picks up the first kill for UCSB.
It's a great counterplay coming in from Cassiopeia. You needed to get something on the map, because otherwise UCLA was going to run away with this game. A good roam down to the bot side, a great Miasma to cut off the flash, so ultimately Light Sludge just goes down, basically. But the big story here is, of course, the play that happened on the top side.
Yeah, both of these, we've seen this matchup 100 times over, and both these guys usually just wind up slugging at each other, but as soon as the jungler or someone else shows up, that's when things kind of turn around.
Right, a lot of the time it actually is fairly easy to turn a gank onto the top side because tanks bring so much CC. But you see, they're just struggling to finish him off. Ivern, not the highest damage jungler, and that gives just enough time for Wizard of Oz to TP in on the Karma, get the shield out to keep the tank alive, and then from there, they're able to turn that 2 for 0.
The Nautilus shield, the Karma Inspire shield, a flash forward actually here from Solaris there, jumping on the Albi. The Miasm was down as well, the Poison is ticking, the Twin Fangs come out, but they're not going to be able to finish off that Thresh, who I've seen at low HP more than I've seen him on the map in general. Yeah,
good condemn overall though. Being able to keep him alive. It was a little close, a little risky, but that's just going to keep the back timings a little desynced here for UCLA's bot lane. It's a little unfortunate that this keeps happening, but you know, you can't do much about it.
Well, this game is definitely back and forth. You guys make sure you let us know who you think is going to win by, of course, getting on Twitter and tweeting at either hashtag UCLA or hashtag UCSB and tweeting to us here at uLoL, because while UCLA has definitely been making some moves early on in the map, UCSB, specifically with the Cassiopeia roam bottom lane, and then the return gank to the bottom lane to blow the flash or just blow down that health bar of the Thresh here. UCSB, they're showing that they got the scaling. They're not they're down, but they're not out.
Right. I mean, 2K at 8 minutes is rough. It's not where you want to be, but it's ultimately not the worst position you can be in. All your outer turrets are still available. The biggest problem, of course, is the massive CS differential that's been acquired in the top lane for 5 miles. He's been shoving in constantly, and they tried to gank him once, and that didn't work out so well. So he continues to push his advantage, having a full cowl up against his matchup in the Nautilus, who really wants that item as well to be able to start going even in these trades.
Yeah, meanwhile on the bottom side, we do see Silvati just making his presence known into the bot lane. The root collar is going to go wide, but so will the Thresh hook. And as you did mention, the CS advantage is really stacking up for multiple lanes on UCLA's side. About a 10 CS advantage in this bottom lane matchup here. You said the Vayne, not the best in lane matchup into the Sivir. Sivir has a lot more wave clear because of the constant aggression on the side of UCLA. Vayne's got an advantage over there. Karma having a lot more early wave clear potential. The poke and the damage coming out from her Q is just a lot higher than the Cassiopeia. Has about a 20 CS advantage to her own. And as you mentioned, that Nautilus in the top lane just decimating the Maokai in CS after picking up a 2 for 0 trade in the top lane with help from Karma.
Yeah, and the Karma mid is something that we hadn't seen so much as we see a roam here coming in from the top lane. They're going to try and get onto Wizard of Oz now. It's going to get a huge collapse in the mid lane.
Yeah, and the Mantra Q comes out, gets a lot of damage down, but it is now UCSB collapsing, and Wizard of Oz is going to be the first one to go down. Emperor On's going to have to try to flash over the wall, but Maokai's right there. The Thresh Lantern will save him, and this is being turned around on by UCSB. 5 miles is going to try to go after Can't Carry, but he gets stuck between a Maokai and the wall. 5 miles is going to go down, and now the rest of UCLA just has to turn tail and run. That's UCSB turning that around.
Right, I mean, UCLA thought they had a lot of pressure mid, so they'd bring their jungler and top laner down to try and collapse onto the mid turret, but UCSB was in position to counter it, and they get 2 kills as well as grabbing the first dragon of the game. It's going to be a Cloud Drake. Not the best one, but overall, you got to be pretty happy with how that turned out.
And the Cloud Drake will wind up going over to the side of UCSB, so just really good presence of mind to be in the area to turn that around. I saw the collapse coming from UCLA from behind the tower, and I thought at first it was UCSB just going to defend the tower, but it was a play executed by UCLA.
Right, and we'll take a look at this. The big thing is the fact that they started kind of pushing down towards that blue buff area, and Karma got a little too close and got opened up on, not really having her front line in front of her, as well as the fact that Nautilus tanked a bunch of the turrets. So you see Wizard of Oz walk a little bit too close, gets rooted up, great chain CC, and then the Cassiopeia ult able to finish him off, hold him in range in time for Liquor Kool-Aid to finish, you know, getting in range for the W, finishes him off. Emperor Ong barely able to get out after all this, despite getting very low there, and they just end up sacrificing 5 mile. You're the tank player, get in there, body block for the rest of your team, let them get out.
It looked like there's a little bit of indecision, like they wanted to go on to Can't Carry, but with the Sivir spell shield available, there was no way to actually just lock her down in place. And so we ended up seeing the Nautilus going down, and as we did see, as that fight finished up, it was a Cloud Drake going over to the side of UCSB. So despite some early missteps in like the first 5 minutes of the game, UCSB have now tied up the kills. They're down basically the farm in lane plus the first blood gold, so they're still down by about 1.5k, but UCSB is showing that they definitely got some moves of their own and are going to be able to respond to what UCLA's pressure on the map is. It looks like they're going to be moving up towards this top lane, trying to give a little bit of reprieve to Liquor Kool-Aid in this Maokai matchup, now down 30 CS, but has picked up 2 kills for himself and has gotten his own Spectre Scowl.
Yep, and it's hard to say what UCLA should do here because part of me wants them to flip their bot lane to the top side with all that pressure Maokai has and just take first turret, but at the same time, they are crushing laning phases pretty hard here, so you think, all right, well, we can extend these and keep growing our CS lead. As we see the gank coming in now for Emperor Ong onto the top side, they're going to try and jump on the Liquid Kool-Aid. He is going to go down very quickly. that's a pretty easy kill for UCLA.
Yeah, and I saw that Ivern had visited topside, got nothing for it besides just relieving a little bit of pressure, and they sneak the Kazakhs up there and they pick up another kill from themselves. Now 2,000 gold ahead. Albi once again getting some damage done to him, but turning it around. On the hunt has been popped by Sivir, but now Light Sludge is in there. Vayne just tumbling and stumbling forward, but in comes Silvati. Daisy is out and ready to play. The shield should be coming out in just a second to slow them down. It's on Daisy, but they've turned around on that Sivir, taking a lot of extra damage there, and it does look like they'll force away UCSB. Meanwhile, that top lane tower, after that Kazakh gank, winds up going down in favor of UCLA.
It's actually super important, the fact that UCLA's bot lane was able to get out there without dying. They forced the play on the top side. You have to worry about the play getting mirrored on the bot side. That's what Ivern tries to do, but it's not able to convert actually with a kill. So UCLA is going to be able to hold off there and going to be able to pick up a turret for free on the top side.
And it looks like with
Maybe
that,
more.
The mascot of the uLoL campus series, Rift Terror, will also be taken with Ivern away in the bottom lane. It looks like that this play will be A-okay, but now Ivern in the mid lane going to just kind of root up and slow down the Karma, trying to get the damage down from Cassiopeia. She's dropped extremely low, and the paralyzing gaze will wind up picking up a kill, so Cassiopeia picks up 1 for none.
A little surprising to see that kill come in. Ivern basically just walked up behind him. They did not have great vision control on the bot side, despite the fact that they're winning this game pretty heavily. Overall, their vision control is not great. It gives Ivern a fairly free gank onto the mid lane, able to pick up Wizard of Oz off that one.
Yep, so UCSB lost the top tower, lost the Rift Herald, picked up a kill for themselves in the mid lane. So as you mentioned, this Ivern, level 1 play didn't work out, wound up dying after trying to steal away the blue buff from Kazakhs. Has kind of recovered A-okay, picked up the redemption for himself, the Ionian Boots of Lucidity. He's making some moves around the map. His scoreline doesn't necessarily reflect that, but UCSB showing they have a couple of responses with UCLA with their laning advantages, with their movements on the map. Yeah, they're getting caught out every here and there, and the kills are pretty much 4-4. The gold count's still firmly 3,000 gold in their favor, though. It's slowly but surely. Every time I mention it, it's going up and up and up.
Right, and I think the big thing is just the CS leads. You can't really make that gold up in the way that you see you can potentially make it up with kills. So despite the fact that UCSB has been able to tie up the number of kills, the turret and most importantly the CS is heavily in UCLA's favor. And it's beginning to get to the point where it's not quite negligible. You know, it was sitting at a 2K lead not too long ago, up to about 3K now. As we see, once again, trying to turn a gank here. It's a pretty powerful Karma Q.
A lot of damage coming out from Wizard of Oz in that mid lane Karma here. On the top side, we do see 5-Mel continuing to wail away on Liquor Kool-Aid. Does wind up landing the dredge line. The depth charge goes out as well. Liquor Kool-Aid is going to wind up falling. A solo kill for the Nautilus. Spirit Visage, 3-1 and 2. He's a monster.
Right, I mean, like we were saying, tank fights in the top lane, generally speaking, don't turn into actual kills, but in the campus series, it tends to happen, especially when you start getting a lead like that.
Yeah, now we see UCLA all across the board. The mid lane tower is going to wind up going down. There was a potential gank or counter gank being set up on the bottom side here. And UCLA, they're definitely showing that they are a powerhouse in the West. Like they said, they're looking forward to those top tier teams. They're looking forward to UBC. They're looking forward to UCI. This is a school that put 2 teams into the top 8 of the Western Conference last year and then smashed them together to make this team. They brought in Wizard of Oz as one of their brand new players, and they're showing that despite the fact that they had 2 different teams, they had multiple different players, they meshed those play styles together, and now they're collapsing into this game on the UCSB and collapsing into mid lane here. The paralyzing gaze does go up from Cassiopeia, though, so it looks like UCLA may have to back away from this. And 5-Mile on the front line, he and Emperor going to get knocked up now as Liquor Kool-Aid trying his best to do every Maokai thing that he can. He's not taking a lot of damage here. Twisted Advance will wind up rooting down 5-Mile. He's going to wind up going down. Bardley trying and can't carry. Have now rotated up from the bottom lane here. Wizard of Oz, one more hit, and he will go down to can't carry. That's a much-needed kill picked up by UCSB.
And you're able to see the strength of their team comp. They have so many defensive tools available. Ivern able to keep them alive in that initial collapse that came in from the top side of UCLA, and then their bot lane with the utility speed-ups that they have are able to collapse onto the fight first and pick up a couple extra kills. They're a little low to keep forcing around the mid lane, but overall pretty happy with that collapse as they look to get their 2nd dragon of the game. So UCLA getting all the CS leads, UCSB getting all the dragons.
Right, and that's going to be an Infernal Drake going over to the side of UCSB, but it looks like UCLA might not give this one up uncontested. It teleports in there from 5-Mile. Ivern will wind up picking up the kill as Emperor Ong tries to get the smite seal, but he will go down. It's going to be a kill picked up for Vayne, though, onto the Sivir, and the fight will continue. Now it looks terrible for UCSB. A double kill picked up for Vayne. A triple kill picked up for Vayne, and she's still tumbling in the backside. Bardley Tryon's going to wind up getting rooted and taken down. Light Sludge chasing chasing away onto Liquor Kool-Aid. The flash forward, the chase after. Is this going to be the quadra kill for Vayne? The Silver Bolt proc is there. A tumble, a stumble, and an ace picked up by UCLA.
A quadra kill onto the Vayne as well. That's going to be huge for her to getting her items. She's going for the crit build, which obviously is the more popular one right now and takes a lot of gold to get online, and nothing like a quadra kill at 15-ish minutes to come online.
Yeah, and this is UCLA taking a bad situation where they overextended too much in the mid lane and then immediately turning it around because they have the teleport available, because they know they have advantages from all their CS, and they trap UCSB in this dragon.
It was definitely a little greedy for UCSB to go for that dragon. Their AD carry server was extremely low. The Ivern was extremely low. They just burned a bunch of important cooldowns turning that fight. They had no Sivir, no Cassiopeia ult. They were down basically everything trying to force this dragon, and it took long enough that UCLA was able to teleport in and re-collapse onto the fight, and they crushed them in it overall, and that is a disaster for UCSB.
And most of all those kills go down onto the Vayne, your late game carries. It looks like they're not done yet, as Kant Carry is going to get knocked up there by the depth charge, but they will not be able to capitalize by picking up a kill. And not only do you not want to be giving kills to Vayne if you're UCSB, you don't want to be giving kills to Light Sludge. For people who may not remember that name, this is the guy from back in Season 2 and Season 3. Most, I guess, famously played AD carry for Meat Playground, the team that Pobelter came from. Was not old enough to play in the LCS qualifier when it came around. He was only 16 at the time, so he and Pobelter had to leave the team. His team did not make it in. This is the guy who, during IPL 5 qualifiers, beat Invictus Gaming. They got knocked out of IPL 5 by Moscow 5. So this is a guy that, while you haven't seen much in the competitive scene of him recently, does have some competitive experience. And if you're going to be feeding kills onto somebody to carry you, it's going to be a guy like this on a champion like Vayne.
Pobelter and him were basically kind of the child NA prodigies back in the day when they were both too young to feed. Everyone was excited to see where they'd end up going. Light Sludge stuck a little bit more on the straight and narrow, going to college, obviously, but an extremely talented player, and the fact that he is now 4-1 is terrifying for UCSB.
Hey man, he went to a school like UCLA. He's on a team like UCLA, like we mentioned just previously before. They put 2 teams in the top 8. But for UCSB, we can see some of the struggles. This team, 2015 was the rookie season. They did okay. They didn't get out of groups. They didn't make it to playoffs. 2016, they couldn't even qualify for the campus series. They instead worked with UCLA. They scrimmed a ton. They found new players. They reinvigorated their roster. They ended the group stage 4-1. The only team they lost to was UCB, which is pretty big because everybody's going to be using to UBC. But UCSB here, they're struggling a little bit. They picked kind of that 2 carry composition. They picked a lot of support pickups in their jungle and the Janna pickup, but they haven't necessarily been able to establish equilibrium to kind of survive this early game. And that's where UCLA is really running away with this gold lead.
Right, and at any point here, UCLA is going to look to make a play onto the bottom outer turret. It's the last outer turret available for them, and they have pressure in the 2 other lanes. It's just about finding a time to roam down there. It seems like they're struggling to do it a little bit, as now they're forcing onto Wizard of Wars yet again in the mid lane. He's a little caught out here, going to go down most likely, but the follow-up from his team is trying to get in range. Emperor Ong able to finish off Cassiopeia there.
Yeah, he just jumps in and just eviscerates her, and now it's going to be Liquor Kool-Aid and Salvati trying to trade down onto the Kazakhs, and Salvati will want to pick up a kill on his opposing jungler. The rest of the team from UCB has arrived as Albi has to flash away, so that's going to be a quick 2-for-1 trade in favor of UCSB.
It feels like UCSB is able to get a lot of these pickoffs and fights started with all the utility that their team has, but then they do this, where they overstay and the other team is able to collapse onto them. Here comes Nautilus and Vayne.
5-Mile just walks right into the middle of everybody and gets a multi-man undertow down. He's going to wind up trying to get the knockup down as well. Now they turn on to Liquor Kool-Aid. The Vengeful Maelstrom has been run out, so they're not going to be able to wind up picking up a kill on that Maokai, but 5-Mile drops low, gets a heal, goes back in. Now there's a lot of damage coming down to Light Sludge. They will finally pick up the Vayne, but he's going to trade down onto the Ivern as well. So now there's only 1 shield left available for UCSB, but they're going to turn around and pick up a kill onto the Nautilus. So UCSB, after a prolonged fight, all those shields, all those heals, they come out ahead.
I mean, that's the problem when you're fighting down a man for UCLA, is that they're lacking just the damage that they need to punch through those shields. As soon as you're able to take 1 person down on a team comp like UCSB's, it becomes much easier. As we see Wizard of Wars with the little cleanup kill there. We'll take another look at this fight, but this is the problem when you're lacking just that extra threat here. You have basically Vayne, and that's it, fighting this 4v3, and you don't have the extra damage you need to punch through the shield. There we see Ivern get one. Then he starts on the Janna. Janna starts ulting, healing herself. You see the Courage of the Colossus onto Strength of the Colossus onto the Maokai there, and he just can't quite punch through anyone despite doing a ton of damage overall in this team fight. Doesn't actually kill anyone until finally at the end he gets the Ivern.
Yeah, and it's just off the back of a Condemn as a parting shot from him there. But all the shields, all the heals, the Monsoon, the the sap magic coming out from Maokai, a clutch Sivir heal to keep the Maokai alive as he's flashed away from that last Vayne Silver Bolt proc. So lots of damage from the side of UCLA, but not enough to take down UCSB. However, all the damage that they've been doing on the map, there's 2 towers to none. They've picked up 13 kills compared to 12. The CS advantages that are still heavily in favor of those solo lanes on UCLA has continued to amount to this 5,000 gold advantage as we crest the 20-minute mark in this first game.
And it is a huge gold advantage for UCLA, but they do need to be careful. UCSB's comp will definitely outscale as the game gets later and later. They're fine where they are right now, obviously, but they can't keep risking mistakes like that where they force really, really hard. If UCSB makes a good play and they pick somebody off, that's fine. Just back off, defend your turrets. You don't need to try that hard to force a punish. As here, it looks like they're trying to force on the Baron as UCSB is grouped up around Dragon.
Yeah, UCSB kind of has the win condition of stacking all the different dragons in this game. They've gotten 2 compared to 0 of UCLA, so they've had decent control over that objective, although that is where it resulted in the previous fight in an ace in favor of UCLA. But UCLA looks like they want to put their sights onto that Baron buff. As you did mention, UCSB have a lot of wave clear. They have the Sivir for that.
Whoa,
Liquor Kool-Aid. Liquor Kool-Aid trying to get some vision down around the Baron pit. Will getting caught out here. It looks like that UCLA, the redemption comes down, but there's going to be an opposing redemption coming. Actually, a second redemption. I forgot they got an Ivern on their team. So they're able to keep Maokai alive, and they pick up a kill on the Thresh as well.
Yeah. I'll be just really overextended there. They snipe out Solaris, they blow up Liquor Kool-Aid. Now they're going to keep chasing him the rest of this fight. Sivir is going to be able to spell shield the Nautilus ultimate. Not the best target to choose for that one.
Liquor Kool-Aid just lived for so long. He goes back in and dies immediately. That's not what you want to have happen. So it turns into a 1-for-1 instead as UCLA just trying to chase down after UCSB. The Luden's Echo proc dealing a ton of damage there from Karma onto the Cassiopeia, and it looks like they're not quite done yet. UCLA, half of them are kind of zoning away UCSB from their own base, and they're just chasing down into this mid lane to get that tower.
Right, they're just going to try and keep them away from being able to clear out this minion wave. That's going to buy Light Sludge enough time to finish off this turret, as now they're going to try and pick a fight. Nautilus in the front line doing a good job front lining.
Oh, but it's the shields and heals composition. They've actually gotten down on the Cassiopeia. She's going to wind up going down as Emperor Ong's going to help pick that kill up for the Karma, and now with the damage dealers gone besides the Sivir, it's going to be opened up for UCLA. Light Sludge is one going down in that fight, but they're going to continue to try to go on to Can't Carry. Now it's a Karma and a Nautilus, and Liquor Kool-Aid has respawned, has teleported back in. Thresh is here just to give a lantern for an express ride out of that one, and another chaotic fight in the jungle.
Yeah, that was a little surprising to see UCSB try and force that fight so hard. It's true that Liquor Kool-Aid is coming up with a teleport. He might be able to recollapse onto the fight, but they just went a little too soon. Got a pretty even fight overall. As you see, 5 Mile, like I said, just body blocking, stopping them from getting through this choke. And you see the difficulties of playing Vayne. It's so hard to get in range to auto attack there. She eats the Cassiopeia ult and basically blows up afterwards. That is one of the difficulties of playing that champion. This leaves Can't Carry alive to try and melt through the front line that's alive for UCLA, but not able to finish them off. And Liquor Kool-Aid just comes in basically to keep them alive.
And it could have been a really good fight for UCLA, but like you said, the paralyzing gaze landing on the Light Sludge's Vayne, just the fact that this Cassiopeia now 6-3 and 4, it's kind of been a bit of a saving grace in this middle stage of the game here for UCSB, just being able to take down that very short range opposing AD carry, being able to lock up the tanks in the front line so that they can even provide peel. The Nautilus, kind of known as the crowd control bot of League of Legends, he hasn't been able to really peel for the Vayne in those situations once he gets locked down. The fact that your jungler is the Kha'Zix and yes, deals a lot of damage, but B does not have a lot of HP to really tank up whatsoever. You do have a very fragile composition once your Nautilus is kind of decommissioned here, as UCSB now recognizing the fact that they've gotten the vision control down in the Dragon area of the map, are going to be trying to go for that one, whereas the enemy jungler from UCLA will be around the Baron pit area. They're going to wind up doing this one.
Yeah, I mean, 5 Mile teleported from the bot lane up to the top side to try and melt this down. Their team comp without Vayne is actually not great at doing objectives. Overall, relatively low damage. You see Emperor On getting very low. 5 Mile is not close enough for the Baron. He should be the one tanking all this damage. Now they're going to get collapsed on by UCSB as Vayne finally got in range. Yeah.
But Emperor Ong, he had to dodge out from both those redemptions, both of them coming up from UCSB. A good dredge line knocks up the entire team from UCSB, but it's got to be used to disengage only. UCSB are collapsing down. They've gone on to 5 Mile now. Liquor Kool-Aid's going to force the flash off from him. Light Sludge now in the front line here. The rest of the team trying to run away. He has one that popped the Vayne ultimate, so you will get the invisibility, but the exhaust goes down as well. The Monsoon gets used, but Barley trying does wind up getting hooked back in by the Thresh. Now they turn down into the Nautilus, they turn down into the Maokai. The Maokai will go down as well, and while the damage is being spread all over the place, it looks like UCLA will be coming out slightly ahead in this fight. A jump forward and the spikes go out from the Kazakhs, and UCLA are on the chase. The Inspire Shield from Karma lands on absolutely everybody. A hook goes wide as it tries to land down onto the Cassiopeia, but Wizard of Ors and Light Sludge will pick up a kill onto the Janna. Now the chase continues. It's going to be Silvati going down. Down goes Can't Carry. A double kill picked up for the Karma. Another kill picked up for the Vayne as she winds up trading her life. But UCLA overall a 4-for-1. And it's not quite done yet. Emperor Ong winds up running into Solaris in the jungle. It's a 4-for-2 as Cassiopeia gets a reprieve kill for that one. But the tower is going to wind up going down for UCLA.
A very, very risky call for UCLA, deciding to try and force onto that Baron. Vayne was not there. They had to TP the Nautilus up just to get a tank there, and then they don't even use the tank properly to absorb the Baron damage. They'll get very low before UCSB is finally able to collapse. But then overall, a well-played team fight by UCLA after that. And a slight mistake out of UCSB at the very end, kind of breaking their formation with Cassiopeia out on the side. As we'll see here, you see how low Emperor Ong is, Wizard of Ors is low, 5 Mile is low, and they have to be on full retreat mode here. But this is the difficulty of the comp for UCSB, is if they're not actually get a route onto a priority target, they're stuck melting front line, and Vayne is great at doing that. So you see Liquor Kool-Aid just getting chunked out so hard by the Vayne.
Yeah, and Lights is continuing to dip, dive, and tumble on in. As soon as 5 Mile winds up landing that...
The hooks. Hook into hook.
The hook into hook there forces the Monsoon, and then the hook cancels the Monsoon. And this is when things kind of went to chaos. They wind up trading down on the tanks. They wind up flashing forward for a hook that winds up missing.
And they split so hard here, and this is the problem. I mean, ideally, everyone's all grouped up. And here, once again, the Cassiopeia splits off on the bot side. She's not actually able to do anything, distracts the enemy for a little bit, but then they try and re-engage onto the Vayne. If you had the Cassiopeia there, maybe that play works. Maybe you can actually blow the Vayne up, but instead, Vayne's just able to run wild and finish off the rest of the team with the help of Karma.
We talked about the fact that the side of UCSB has the heals and shields composition with the double redemption, the Ivern, and the Janna and everything, but the side of UCLA, they have ways to kind of keep their Vayne alive as well. They have the Thresh Lantern, they have a lot of crowd control, and of course, the mid lane Karma stacking AP. 7-4-10, no slouch for Wizard of Wars, the new player on the UCLA squad, hadn't played on either of the teams that kind of smashed together. They got a lot of utility to keep this Vayne alive.
Right, I mean, we saw that Wizard of Wars actually missed his empowered Karma Q when he was off on the side over the wall at the start of that fight. If he landed that onto the backline of UCSB, UCLA probably crushes that team fight. So, you know, neither team played that perfectly, and I think UCLA showing that they are still very far ahead, almost 10K right now. So if they get into fights like that, if they start landing their abilities just a little bit better, they probably crush them. You can't carry, get chunked out so hard.
Yeah, they may not have any of the dragons, but they have all the towers taken on the map so far. And despite the Sivir, press R, and run at you comp with the Maokai, it's going to be UCLA chasing after UCSB here as they wind up landing the hook on the Maokai. The redemptions wind up going down, healing them back up to not full HP, but it will be continued pressure from the side of UCLA. They've taken 4 towers on the map, which has been both towers in both top and mid lane. So now they're setting their sights on the outer bottom tower, which is still left alive.
When do you see 30 minutes into the game, a 5-man grouped up bot lane outer turret push with Baron still available? I'm a little surprised to see UCSB actually trying to defend that as opposed to just going to Baron and trading or something.
Right, and we're just giving it up and trying to defend underneath their second tier 2 towers. El Salvati on the opposite side going to be caught out by Albi and those thresh hooks. Daisy winds up coming out. It's going to be a difficult obstacle to pass through, but Bardley trying, gets hooked up over the wall. The flay backwards. The Monsoon has to get used to try to get him to survive.
So many shields.
Lots of shields come out, and he'll have about half his HP back because and Solaris in the front line wants to pick up a kill on the Thresh. Can't carry now. The Sivir Ricochet is going across the backline, picks up a kill for himself. Kazakhs in the backline will now pick up a kill for himself, but UCLA has taken out both of the carries from the side, or both the carries have been taken out from UCLA by UCSB. They collapse on that one, and they're able to take a fight.
Right, and I mean, I guess if you're going to lose a fight for UCLA, better be on the bot side of the map, so it's a little hard for them to get to Baron and take it, because that would have been a disaster if that happened around the top side of the map. UCSB is still going to try and get up to that Baron in time. They have 20 seconds. They pop the Sivir ult to get in range even faster. They're going to try and melt this Baron down, and they got the Cassiopeia to do it.
Sure, Cassiopeia going to be chunking through that Baron. Sivir now with their Essence Reaver and Phantom Dancer will be stacking up crits as well. Daisy's there to provide a little bit of extra DPS. Emperor Ong and 5 Mile, though, they want to try to stop this, but the Ivern brushes, they don't know how low that's going to be getting, so it's going to take 5 Mile walking into the fray, but it will be the smite and the secure there by UCSB. The collapse down onto the members of UCLA that were trying to stop that Baron comes in, but Karma comes in with an empowered Q and just destroys everybody. Albie's in here now as well, and the hooks are going to wind up landing, making sure nobody gets out of this pit. 5 by a Wizard of Wars, and Albie collapsed down into the pit. They lost their jungler, they lost the Smite War, but 3 Baron buffs lost for UCSB.
This game's getting a little crazy, Tom, as UCSB's turn to force on the Baron buff. They burn it down as fast as they can, but because 5 Mile was alive the whole time and he's a huge Nautilus, he's able to go in there in front line for so long that the UCLA's dead members respawn, come back and join the fight. They're able to collapse, kill off 3 members of UCSB, but as bad as that might seem, the fact that they were able to take the Baron away from the team with the 10K gold lead is going to deny a lot of what UCLA wants to do in terms of splitting up the map and pressuring once they got the Baron buff. So even though UCSB isn't going to be able to use it, just denying it from UCLA is huge.
It's a much needed boost of global gold on their side as well. They have now the Baron buff minions. Like you said, they don't have to be proactive with them, but as long as they don't let UCLA continue to pressure the other sides of the map, take that last remaining outer tower, this is UCSB's chance to kind of buy a little bit of time to get some much more needed farm onto their carries. They've been losing out in CS all across the board throughout the lane phase. Sivir needs to wind up getting her Infinity Edge so those Ricochet crits really start stacking up the DPS. Cassiopeia has done a great job picking up 9 kills and 6 assists for herself, but she's down 225 compared to 166 CS in that straight mid lane versus mid lane matchup. And the Maokai, who's been able to pick up 10 assists and 4 kills for himself, has gotten through some of his tank itemization, but still down by about 30 CS in his own matchup. This Baron buff is going to be used to acquire some of that lost gold, that discrepancy between these matches.
And UCSB, despite being down, has a better team comp, like we said. We saw in that bot lane fight what happens. UCLA does not have a ton of burst, so if they're not able to actually blow up a member right away, that's where UCSB's comp excels, because they're able to use the Janna to heal up. They have double shields. They have a ton of redemptions. They have Locket now completed. So they have so many defensive tools that if you don't actually kill a member on their team very quickly, they probably win that team fight, also with arguably some of the better team fighting carries in Sivir and Cassiopeia. So as this game gets later and later, UCSB able to grab their first turret of the game finally. This is huge for them.
All it takes is a Baron buff to get your first tower of the game, Mark.
All it takes. Tell that to C9.
We'll see about that. But that's their first tower.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. C9 takes first tower pretty late as well.
They actually do. So UCSB, about 33 minutes into the game, a little bit slower than even Cloud9, but they still have control of 3 of the dragons on the map. They've gotten themselves that Baron buff, like I said, to buy themselves a little bit of time. The gold gap has been closed to about a 7,500 gold lead, which is significantly less than about the 10,000 it was just about a minute or two ago. But as you did mention, UCSB, while they do have the stronger later game team fight, really need to be picky about how these fights are going to happen, because when they've happened on their own grounds, it's been all right. But when they're the ones running away, using the Sivir ult to disengage rather than engage, it's been UCLA taking these fights.
Yeah, UCLA needs to do a better job of setting up their team fights with either the Nautilus getting a good flank off or Thresh landing a hook on a priority target, not just the Janna, because we saw that they couldn't even burst the Janna down when Nautilus wasn't quite in position. And if you're not able to do that and the Janna gets out, I mean, you just blew a ton of spells on the other team's support. Who's still going to live and keep shielding the other carries on her team. So UCLA needs to be a lot more careful coming up and making sure that 5 Mile gets off into the right positions, hopefully a flank.
There's also a Guardian Angel that's been picked up for Solaris's Cassiopeia. So now that means that the Cassiopeia, who has been a primary target for UCLA to jump on, we've seen Emperor Ong kind of give his life multiple times, 5 times almost to be exact, to pick up kill on that Cassiopeia. That option is kind of off the table now. Not only do they have the shields and the heals to keep it alive, but the Guardian Angel means they got to do it twice.
It can be very difficult to do. If you are able to manage to pop the Cassiopeia's GA, the one thing that's nice is that the DPS on UCSB's comp drops heavily because she is one of the 2 real damage dealers on the team. Even if Sivir's kind of free hitting you while you kind of chase her off the soon-to-be resurrected corpse of Cassiopeia, that's still not too bad overall. So UCLA can overextend a little bit trying to pop the GA, but they do need to be careful making sure that they're not all sitting at around a couple hundred health after they manage to do so.
All right, both of these teams have begun to stack up a lot of core items for their builds. The Mercurial Scimitar has been picked up for Vayne, so Light Sludge is going to be able to get himself out of these paralyzing gaze situations or potentially Maokai twisted advances. He has been playing rather up front and in their face against UCSB. He's been able to chunk down onto Liquor Kool-Aid's Maokai very effectively because of that, but also the Infinity Edge and the Last Whisper now being picked up by Sivir across the rift. First time in the game that UCSB has had a CS advantage in their lane, as this Sivir has now gotten into basically one-shot wave clear mode with a Ricochet and a quick Boomerang Blade being tossed out. Lots of damage potential coming up from that Sivir. So this potential team fight, now that Baron is kind of faded on the side of UCSB, could really be the make or break fight for the game. Even though UCLA's had such a lead this entire game, this next fight is really going to be one that decides who wins.
It looks like it's probably going to be happening in about a minute and a half, as both Elder Dragon and Baron will be respawning at that point. And I expect teams to play a little bit more towards the Baron buff. UCLA still is up pressure in this game because it still has the big gold lead, so they get to dictate where this fight most likely happens. And with no dragons secured for them, there's no real reason to force for the Elder Dragon. It's not going to be a huge buff for you. So you can expect to see them focus more on the Baron buff, as well as the fact that that's just generally the better late game objective in terms of securing more objectives.
They have not the most wave clear on the side of UCLA, and even so, a lot of it's going to be coming out from the Karma. So if you're trying to deal against an enemy Baron buff pushing down, you basically have Vayne's auto attacks, and that's like your best option for wave clear, which is not
that's not even an option. If Vayne's walking into range to auto attack versus a Cassio and a Sivir, you're most likely going to get chunked out pretty heavily. So if UCLA ever does start losing pressure in this actual game where they're underneath their own turrets, it's going to be really hard for them to win from that point, unless they're just forcing an engage right away with some kind of TP flank from Nautilus.
Well, looks like right now what UCLA is trying to do is just make sure they got the entire Baron side vision stacked up. Is no wards from really either side around the Dragon Pit area. UCSB does have 3 Elemental Drakes to the 1 of UCLA stacked up for themselves, so that Elemental Drake is a little bit more appealing on UCSB's side. That, of course, means that they're also going to want to fight if they wind up getting that.
Yeah, I mean, with the fact that Elder Dragon is respawning about 10 seconds earlier than Baron, you can't actually trade. So UCLA does need to respond to the fact that UCSB is grabbing some vision control down there. Not too risky for them, able to kind of walk up and contest it. As Nautilus does need to kind of join up with his team. He was split pushing the top side, as now we see UCSB actually starting up the Elder Dragon, and UCLA is splitting up to the top side if they want to go for Baron. They're going to lose this for free.
Well, it looks like they're just going to offer up that trade, so Baron's going to be spawning right now as Elder Dragon's just basically about to go down, so it doesn't look like that either team's going to be able to interrupt each other as Elder Dragon loses 85 HP there. Silvati's going to wind up last hitting that one. The Redemption's coming out, but it's not going to snipe with the Baron there. Just deal some damage to the side of UCLA. But now this is UCSB. If they can catch them off here, they have 3 Elemental Drake burns coming in. Solaris actually goes in all by himself. The Cassiopeia is now the front line. All the shields go down on the Albi, but he's going to wind up going down as Can't Carry picks up that kill. The Jana Monsoon resets the fight. Is now 5 miles on the opposite side of his team. Emperor Ong and Light Sledge take a chunk of damage here as now UCSB with this Baron Dragon buff burning away at UCLA.
Yeah, we saw for a second there, 5 Mile was thinking about TPing up to the top side, trying to use that to push the newly acquired Baron buff to push in the top wave. He canceled that TP as Liquor Kool-Aid was matching him with the Elder Dragon burn. And overall, that's got to be a huge mistake on the side of UCLA. There's no reason you need to trade objectives there. You can still fight them around that. Sure, they lost vision control. You have the Nautilus to kind of walk in front. And instead, they just opt for a trade. UCSB having an extremely fast team comp, able to pop the Sivir to get over to collapse onto the UCLA team who just took Baron buff. And a little surprising to see Cassiopeia just go over the wall by herself, taking the blast cone. That's a very ballsy play, but it didn't look like UCLA was ready for it at all. She gets into the brush, she gets a lot of damage off and sets her team up to pick off some members of UCLA.
Normally it's UCLA jumping on the Cassiopeia, not Cassiopeia jumping on that.
My turn finally, yeah.
As that the snake took to the skies and just did as much damage as possible. And now it's kind of still gone back to a bit of a stalemate. There's still 4 Baron buffs on the side of UCLA and 5 Aspect of the Dragon empowered members from the side of UCSB. Aspect of the Dragon going to be lasting about 30 seconds or so less than the Baron buff. So we'll have to see if UCSB is going to be making a move. It's going to be relatively soon as they do want to catching down onto Albi again. Going to get rooted up, going to get popped as Can't Carry picks up that first kill. So it's a thresh going down again. A flash forward and a root call down into Wizard of Ors though. They're trying to chase down into the Karma. The flash has been popped. Can't Carry wants it blasting over the wall. It's a shutdown for the Ivor and he picks up a kill onto the Karma. That's 2 members from UCLA down now. It's going to be UCSB. The tank is split off once again. Liquor Kool-Aid chasing after 5 miles. Light Sledge winds up going down. Cassiopeia just solos the Vayne between all the poison and all the burn. Now 5 Mile, he's on the completely opposite side of the map of his team. He has no teleport. He has no way out. His Guardian Angel will eventually maybe get popped if he and Liquor Kool-Aid continue to trade. This is so much free reign for UCSB. They take down that outer tower on the bottom lane. They're going to be trying to get minions to push up. They have free reign over this map now.
They have 30 seconds before Wizard of Ors and Light Sludge respawns. That's going to be plenty of time to start mowing down some turrets in the bot lane. They've grabbed the outer. They're working on the inner right now. And UCLA kind of trying to defend, also trying to get out. Nautilus here, still not in a great spot, doesn't have flash available. No way he's going to actually get out of this, but it will take a while for UCSB to actually finish him off, and he still has the GA afterwards.
The aspect of the Dragon has worn off, so there's not as much damage as there was just a couple of seconds ago, but still a very beefy 10-4 and 9 Cassiopeia. The Miasma's down. He's not going to be able to pick up the Lantern. The Monsoon knocks him back, but he will take it. He's just too tanky. He gets out. The same time, UCSB get the bottom lane tower, but they can't kill the Nautilus twice.
I stand corrected. He will get out. I thought for sure that was not going to happen, but UCSB unable to finish him off. Cassiopeia, no Void Staff yet, not actually able to punch through that tanky Nautilus. And I was a little worried that UCSB was not going to be able to grab the bottom inner turret. They're still able to do so. If they had not grabbed that turret as well as not secured that kill, that would have been a pretty big disappointment, but they are able to get the turret at least. Not too bad overall, and most importantly, the gold lead has shrunk to basically 4,000 now when it was sitting at 7,000 just a moment ago.
Yep.
And UCSB's team comp, we always say is going to outscale. It is officially outscaled them now.
It is a give or take a 3,000 gold, air quotes, Elder Dragon power play that they have been able to pick up. It was not a Baron power play. They took the Elder Dragon buff and they were able to find the fight that they needed.
I would hate to see UCLA's Baron buff power play on that one. That negative 4,000 or something along the lines of that?
It's not going to be a very pretty Baron, but they got the Baron gold, so technically that helps them out a little bit. You know, just to clarify the equation for that, does keep in track the Baron buff gold, but still about a 3,000 gold swing in favor of UCSB's bank accounts pretty much. Is that objective trade worked wonders for them. And as you mentioned, Mark, they said that this is going to be a composition that when they get the items, when we hit the late game, will outscale the side of UCLA. The first 30 minutes of this game were all about UCLA making map movements, taking down towers, continuing to trade off against UCSB in fights and in objective fights, pinch them into the Dragon Pit, take those fights, get a quadra kill on your Vayne. But now it's all UCSB's territory.
Well, you have to look at how UCLA's macro decided to play out the later portions of this game. They're forcing around the bot in outer turret for some reason instead of trying to control around Baron buff. Obviously a much more important objective, and it allows you to get easier flanks off. And instead, they lose a team fight at bottom. It gives UCSB enough time to run to Baron, and they took that away, which stalled UCLA out because they couldn't grab the Baron anymore. And then the next time Baron respawns, they opt into a very surprising trade where they give UCSB a team with 3 dragons, Elder Dragon for free, which gave them time to then collapse up to the later spawning Baron. They lost that fight, and it looks like they're not quite happy with how they've been playing. They're going to force on the Maokai.
Yeah, flash, then a dredge line onto Liquor Cooler. That Maokai's super tanky. The double redemptions come out, and now the teleports and the shields are coming in. UCSB trying to keep their tank alive as Daisy's the one that gets taken down first. Liquor Kool-Aid, though, basically as healthy as when this fight first began, is going to wind up getting rooted out, has to flash away. Emperor Ong's on one side, Light Sludge is on the other. Miasma comes down to block them off, as does the Monsoon to try to reset the fight. Wizard of Wards winds up going down, so the shields are gone. The magic damage is gone from the side of UCLA. UCSB, they're collapsing down onto this one. Guardian Angel's still fresh and healthy for multiple members of that side, and that was just UCLA trying to take a fight. I don't think they can anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it was well played by Light Sludge for the most part. He was able to chunk out the front line of UCSB constantly, but he has to be so scared of the Cassiopeia at all times. And even though Cassio did not get the stun, she did land the damage onto a number of UCLA's team, and that was able to stop UCLA's aggression from being able to chase through that fight. And now they've killed the mid laner Wizard of Wars. They're going to take the mid inner turret now on the back of that team fight.
So it's another tower going down in favor of UCSB. Now they've tied it up at 5 apiece, and the gold gap has shrunk 2,000 gold in favor of UCLA. This outer tower already has a large minion wave prep for it. That is not long for this world. Another quick 1,000 gold going into the pockets of UCSB. This Baron's going to be spawning in 20 minutes. They have the ability to go back and recall. They have the ability to ward it up beforehand. And UCLA, we're singing their praises not but 10 minutes ago. Now it's all about UCSB, the quote-unquote second-year rookie squad.
The second-year rookie squad, yeah. The red shirt rookies, I believe, is what they red shirted last year.
That's what I was going for.
But here, UCSB, they got to get back to this Baron quickly. Their team comes really fast, but I don't think they want to pop it if they don't need to. UCLA going to be interested to see if they decide to force. They're going to try, but UCSB's already back here. Yeah, they can't quite do this.
And this could be a rinse and repeat of the fight we just saw. Sivers on the hunt has been popped, and they've locked up onto 5 MI. As the Nautilus in the front is extremely tanky, but there's a lot of damage from Sivir, a lot of damage from Cassiopeia. This is UCSB charging through the enemy jungle, forcing them away from that Baron buff.
Vayne got taken down to half health just off 2 ricochet crits. Not even close. to Sivir at all. Just her front line getting hit and her trying to be involved in the team fight chunks her out, chunks out UCLA. They're not able to actually contest this Baron buff, and it's going to be secured by UCSB.
Just winds it going down as quickly as it came up, as now it's going to be UCLA turning tail and running away. UCSB, they've bided their time. They've waited for their composition to come online. They've waited for those CS advantages to pretty much become minuscule from the side of UCLA, and it is now them with a couple hundred gold in their advantage, full item builds nearly completed from each team, and a Baron buff on their side at 46 minutes in.
And the little benefit extra is the fact that UCSB's bot lane minions did all the work on their own. They cracked their first inhibitor turret for them, and now with Baron buff up, they're going to look for their second one.
A teleport is coming in from Liquor Kool-Aid. He's been bullied around this entire time, but now it's Maokai's time to shine in the front line. Runs in, locks down the Emperor on. The Redemptions are coming out extremely low. Solaris actually going to be dropping out extremely low, but the Saris Embrace shield, the shields from Janna, the shields from Ivern, shields and heals from all over the place. Cassiopeia will stay alive, so all the damage done by UCLA will be negated as the inhibitor falls in favor of UCSB. Now they're looking for the fight. Light Sludge is in the front, trying to chunk through Maokai. Both of the hooks wind up going wide. UCSB take the inhib, and they leave.
Not quite able to actually get onto any priority targets of UCSB. We saw Solaris getting very, very low. I was surprised to see UCSB actually forcing that hard around the turret with him already sitting at about 500-ish health when that fight started. But they're extremely confident in what their team comp does, which is stop people from dying. And, I mean, they managed to do that there.
Well, we said that this composition will definitely keep people alive. They need a high damage AD carry. They got one. They need a high damage mid laner. They got one. They need the game to go late. They've waited that long. Another Elder Dragon's going to be spawning in just about 30 seconds. And so far, it's been UCSB shown that they can take these fights. UCLA, they have to contest this, but can they actually win the fight, Mark?
I'm not sure they can. The gold lead is finally back in UCSB's favor. They were down almost the entire game, but it has reached the late game, and at this point, they are kings, and they're going to set up around this Elder Dragon. They also have the benefit of having 3 elemental dragons, so this is going to actually benefit them, whereas UCLA, they don't need this. They just want to stop it from coming down on the side of UCSB again.
Well, they always say don't call it a comeback until it actually is a comeback, and it looks like UCSB may be trying to make that one happen is now.
Well, they've came back. They just haven't won yet.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay, it's a comeback. Officially a comeback. Emperor Ong, though, waiting in this brush. Will get spotted out by Slavati as the rest of UCLA are kind of meandering in the area. This is going to be a bit of a disjointed fight here as Daisy winds up coming out extremely early. Daisy's going to want it going down before the fight even really breaks out, but with Baron buff minions in the bottom lane, it looks like UCSB just want to go for this inhibitor. As Can't Carry's already there. The On the Hunt has been popped. Sivir's going to just try to run away. The Monsoon's used for disengage early, but 5 miles in the back of the lines here. They're trying to focus out on the Bardley Triumph, but he stays alive. The Mercurial Scimitar has to get popped by Light Sludge as Can't Carry's going to wind up taking down Thresh. The Ricochet crit's going across the entire team. Slavati flashes out, will stay alive. Light Sludge trying to do as much damage as possible. Wizard of Wars will pick up the first kill for the side of UCLA. Light Sludge is still alive. 5 miles in the back line. They're starting to get down onto the carry. Sivir is dead. Cassiopeia is running. She gets shut down. Light Sludge gets a double kill, and UCLA, they find their fight. They take them down. Liquor Kool-Aid's the only one alive. Is he going down as well? 5 miles actually already teleported to the top lane.
DP.
Wizard of Wars will join him. They're just trying to waste all of Maokai's time possible. There's minions in the base. UCLA, they took it. They found it.
They can potentially win this if Liquor Kool-Aid, yeah, the ace comes in. He was the only one who was able to stop this, most likely. He had teleport, or he had the Baron-empowered recall. If he was able to get far enough away, he could live. But now, the 2-man double teleport to the top side with a big creep wave. Wizard of Wars and 5 miles are trying to finish the game. They need to get their minions in range. They're going to be able to do it. There's no one coming up for 20 seconds. This is going to be game for UCLA.
This is why you don't call it a comeback, Mark.
You jinxed it, Tom. Why'd you do that?
You're the one who called it a comeback. But UCLA, after all of this, after the game was in their favor, come back.
You said, don't call it a comeback. And then you said, I guess you can call this one a comeback. And I said, they haven't won yet.
Well, they do, and they did. UCLA somehow comes back. After being ahead all game. They come back after being ahead all game.
That's a soul crusher for UCSB. The fact that they had such an atrocious early game. CS deficits all across the map. They're getting destroyed in fights, and then they start winning them, and they start punishing UCLA's macro mistakes, and they finally get a lead, and then they just get horribly split up going for that bottom inhibitor turret. That was such a mistake because their team comp is all about how their formation is. And they whenever they broke formation, they would lose the team fights. And they just broke formation at the worst possible time.
They thought they caught Emperor Ong on the offside, and then half of them still went for the inhibitor, and there was a bit of miscommunication. That can kind of be attributed to the fact that this is a relatively new squad. You know, they've basically rebranded their entire roster except for Bardley trying, and it just looked like they finally kind of had the stuff meshed together. Like they were like, okay, we just need to wait for our carries to get really big. Very similar to like almost, not necessarily a solo queue style, but very dependent on like one or two players to carry you. They got there, but they just couldn't coordinate for that last fight.
Right, and UCLA deserves a lot of props having the presence of mind to do the double teleport up to the top lane, realizing that they can end the game after that. The minion wave is there. They don't hesitate on that at all. And then a good job by the rest of the team chasing down on Maokai, making sure he can't get the teleport to try and defend. Overall, a very crazy game with a lot of mistakes kind of coming in from both teams.
Well, you guys can listen to us recap it all you want, but we got some replays to help us out here because the beginning stages of this game, it really was all about UCLA catching UCSB. They did wind up losing a lot of the Dragons in the early game, but they were winning every single fight, including an ace here that got a quadra kill for Light Sludge.
Right, we saw UCSB a number of times kind of get a pick and then go for a little bit too much. Here, after winning a fight around the mid lane, they try and force on the Baron. The double TP comes in. They're able to collapse the Dragon, excuse me, and they're able to blow up the rest of the team, getting an ace very, very late. It took us a little bit of time for Light Sludge here to finish off Liquor Kool-Aid, but this is one of the big plays that gave UCLA their huge gold advantage, and then they did a fairly good job of kind of controlling after that part in the game, but they never got a major objective for free. They never just got a Baron through vision control or won a team fight, then got Baron. It was always these kinds of trades or giving things up in return.
They had to give up the Elder Dragon for a Baron trade, which wound up being the thing that UCSB needed to kind of come back into the game. And that was around 35, 36 minutes into the game. And then it took them another 12 or so minutes to wind up finally finding a fight that they could actually win because they were behind for that rest of the time. And in that last game-ending fight, around 40.5 minutes, UCLA was finally able to pick apart the grouped up composition from UCSB, finally find their fight, and finally take the game.
Right, Emperor Wrong does a good job sitting just out of vision here. They warded over, so they thought it was clear, and then Savaldi gets a little bit caught out. But instead of grouping up and trying to fight with your Ivern, and Sivir decides to continue pushing while Savaldi just takes a bunch of free damage. And now you're in a terrible spot where your front line is not actually in front of your carries. It's gonna, you see UCLA realizing this and going so hard onto Can't Carry. He's barely able to get out, but the hook after the flash comes in, pulls him into range, and it just forces UCSB to not be able to focus down any carries they want. Light Sludge is hitting for free basically on the side. He pops Solari's GA very quickly, and this is what I talked about. If the GA goes down for Cassiopeia, the GPS drops immensely, and they're basically able to sit there and wait for him to come back up. And then they win the fight, and then this duel between Can't Carry and Light Sludge was so close, but Light Sludge comes up ahead. That's all he needs, and then it's an easy chase down to the rest of the team.
And it was just, like you said, the disjointedness of that fight, the fact that they used the Janna Monsoon to try to get the Sivir Can't Carry into the rest of the team. They utilized so much of the utility to wind up doing disengage, to wind up surviving until the fight could actually break out where they wanted it to. And like you said, by that point, they had already popped the Cassiopeia.
Right. I mean, you want to be using your tools for survival and disengage, but you want to be putting it onto a member like a Maokai or the Ivern or some member that they're forced to fight in your front line. But because it was Sivir who was caught out and pulled into the team, they had to use everything to get her out as opposed to keeping their front line up. And then once they've blown all that stuff already, it's a little too easy for the rest of UCLA to kind of force onto the members that they want to, able to pop the GA on Cassiopeia side, then melt the front line, and then win a duel. There was too much going wrong for UCSB.
With so much going on in that game, we're going to have to take a break. Not for the players, but for us to recover for that one. But when we return, we're going to see if UCSB can regroup and finally take a win in game number 2 of this best of 3. Hello and welcome back. We saw what is literally the definition of an extremely close game between UCLA and UCSB. Mark, what is Santa Barbara going to have to do to seal the deal in game 2?
I mean, if they just tighten up their early game a little bit, I think that might be all they need. I like their team comp. If they're not able to play a little bit better in the early game, I don't think they should go for it again, because you can't bank on UCLA playing the mid and late game out that badly for a second time in a row. So if you're going to lose that hard with a comp like that, then I think they need to look a little bit more early game. But if they can shore it up just through their own play, then I think it's great to go for that again.
Well, we saw a very poor early game invade going down for them as first blood was picked up by UCLA off of the Ivern coming in. We'll see if there's anything that UCSB or UCLA want to make changes to in the pick and ban phase as we're getting underway for the second match in pick and ban in just a second. Last game we saw the shields, we saw the heals, we saw the prolonged team fights, we saw a lot of different things coming out from UCSB, and like you said, it didn't really bolster their laning phase, but their late game was pretty on point.
Right, but the thing is, it's so hard for UCLA to want to ban that out, because most of those picks are not really priority picks. It's not like a Varus, you know, a Jhin, a Ryze, these kinds of things that are considered meta right now, power picks. So if you want to ban it out, you have to really heavily target those specific picks. Like, Janna is not a top tier support in a lot of people's minds. It's seeing a little bit of play come back, but generally not too much. As so far, bans have remained the same for both UCLA and UCSB. Nothing different. I believe Corki was banned last game as well.
Yep, Corki was banned last game in addition to the Camille and the Graves were big bans as well. We'll have to see if the Cassiopeia goes untouched, as that was a very, very powerful pickup for Solaris. It was kind of an enabler for that entire composition as well, because we mentioned we needed two really big damage dealers with all those shields and heals on their side, and Cassiopeia was the missing puzzle piece.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe UCLA starts drafting a couple of those away. I think they had the opportunity to take the Cassiopeia away because it was last picked. It was pretty telegraphed that that's what they wanted to take. Most likely, Cassiopeia is one of the highest DPS mages in the game. They have an Ivern, Maokai, Janna, Sivir. What goes best with that? It's pretty clear. So maybe UCLA, instead of banning that stuff out, though they do target the Ivern this time around, maybe they can look to draft some of those tools away as well.
Yeah, so the Ivern ban, how that kind of gets rid of a little bit of that composition, as it will be the Thresh for Bardley trying. So the first pick of Thresh in game number 1 from UCLA was because it was of Bardley trying.
Right, and I mean, it's a very high priority pick in the series. It's not too surprising to see in a series that the priority is different than what you would expect just generally. Thresh, not a power pick for most people, but if you know the other guy's great at it and you're great at it, well, we want it for ourselves. And to be fair, Albie did get caught out of position a lot of times, but in team fights, he had a number of huge hooks, including that last one onto Sivir that basically won them the game.
Right, and I mean, Bard was left open this game. It was banned away in game number 1. It was left open, and we're seeing the priority on that Thresh over the Bard. So it could, like you said, be something that Albie is extremely comfortable and they want to take it away. But UCLA will continue to do what they did last game. They got the Nautilus, they got the Kha'Zix. They had an extremely powerful early game.
We got a Warwick, Tom.
Ooh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I mean, they just locked it in now. Warwick has not seen a ton of play in the competitive scene at any level, has seen a little bit mostly going in the jungle. Some people think it can be played top. There's a lot of debate about that. Bullies a lot of the tanks, supposedly, so we'll need to see if they flex that. The other thing that UCSB grabs there is the Varus. No surprise. I mean, it was a surprise it wasn't picked last game. No surprise to see it this time around.
Yeah, so a little bit more standard stuff from UCSB this time around as the Varus picked up, but an immediate lock-in of Caitlyn for UCLA. So this is a light sledge kind of falling back onto some more, they're not standard meta picks, but this is stuff that he's been playing for, well, basically his entire League of Legends career.
And it's very lane oriented. It's a bully matchup. It seems like they really like getting Light Sludge onto something he can win. Last time they got the Vayne into the Sivir. This time they're taking Caitlyn into the Varus, one of the few picks in the meta that can really bully Varus even a little bit, because generally Varus is the bully, with the piercing arrow being able to snipe you through creeps as well as push the wave. So need to see if they're actually able to win that matchup. Also grabbing the Malzahar, one of the best supports available.
Yep, so that is a very high damage bottom lane, especially early on. So UCLA looks like they want to continue their lane phase dominance. They are going to be saving their mid lane pick for last, as the Orianna has been locked in by the side of UCSB. So it's more utility coming out from the mid lane, which is something that UCLA had last time around. They had the Karma pick up for that mid lane, and they will wind up going for the Maokai. So overall, slight adjustments from UCSB. They have a little bit of utility still. The fact that they have the Orianna, they have the Thresh, but it's not nearly as hard as it was with the Janna and the Ivern. Wyvern.
Yeah, we see UCLA finish things off with the Lux mid. Now, this is a champion that I love watching. When someone's a good Lux, you just see him start sniping people all over the map. Doesn't look fair at all, just blows you up from 2,000 units away or something like that. And it's not meta. It has a lot of issues with its mana, its lack of mobility. It's very skill shot reliant. There's a lot of reasons that people don't like picking Lux. But if you see a well-played Lux, it can look a little busted.
Well, why don't we take a look at the entire results of the draft for game number 2 with our draft summary graphic, as we can see a little bit more run-of-the-mill composition for UCSB this time around. UCLA shaking things up mainly just based off the fact that they don't have the engage potential from their support nearly as much as the constant thresh hooks. You have the flash Nethergrass, which is on a much longer cooldown, but you do have a little bit more potential coming out from the Lux pickup if it's played well.
And I really do like UCSB's comp for the most part. It's a little low damage, but it has a ton of pick-off potential, ton of chain CC, and then you have the great Warwick-Orianna combo that can be a total threat around the mid lane. It's kind of like the old Zac Ori, old Rengar Ori. It's on that level where you just speed up the Warwick. He comes flying in with his blood scent, has the ultimate to engage, then you follow up with the Ori ultimate. So this is overall is a really strong team comp, though like I said, its damage is a little questionable later in the game.
Does that make you want to change your vote as to who you think is going to win? You had UCLA.
I mean, I don't know. It was close because game 1, UCLA was stomping, and then it was really scary in the mid-late game. This time, their comp doesn't seem to synergize quite as well, but they are very lane focused, and they got a huge lead last time, so I'm going to stick with them for a second. All
right, well, Mark's sticking tried and true, but who are you guys voting for the second match? You could tweet either hashtag UCLA or hashtag UCSB. Blah. It's easy for me to say. A lot easier for you guys to type if you tweet at uLoL to make your own pick, as we're going to be heading into the second game in just a bit.
It's a lot of faith to give the internet users that they're going to be able to type in a couple letters correctly.
I mean, I can even speak it correctly, let alone the fact that I would probably type it.
It's hard to speak it. I mean, they got they got word check, spell check. They got everything that they should not mess it up. But somehow people continually misspell things on the internet.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the acronyms for all these schools, we have UCs, we have UBs, we have USs, we have states and non-states.
There's so many California schools, so many UC somethings.
Well, we are in the Western Division right now, so.
Of course, I know.
I mean, we got plenty of California schools and plenty of campus series action. This is only the first brackets phase of the playoffs. We still have plenty of weeks going forward. We actually don't even get to the finals until the end of May, so it's February still. So
we got a lot of League of Legends, is what you're saying.
A lot of League of Legends still coming your way. In addition to this, game number 2 here is UCLA. Now on the red side, already up 1 game over UCSB. Going to be starting on the blue side. Everybody kind of grouping up on the side of UCLA, but more of a standard line of scrimmage kind of stuff coming up from UCSB, which is very different than their game 1 early lane.
Right. I mean, game 1 we saw a lot of invades, grouped up stuff. UCLA grouped up again, but this time playing it a little further back. Neither team's level 1 is super great. A lot of the champions have to scale something they don't really want to if they're trying to get a pick off in an invade. You would see Lux start binding instead of her E. Same with Nautilus starting hook instead of his W or E. And so, just generally doesn't want to start with that kind of stuff. Though we see Warwick potentially looking to start on the top side of the map. Gets scouted out with the ward, not going to be able to do so. Going to drop back into his own jungle.
Yeah, so no super deep vision from either side. They're not going to have entire tabs on where the junglers are going to be starting, although it does look like that they will be mirroring blue buff starts here. The board lane's going to be tanking up for Emperor Ong onto this blue buff. Yeah, I have to watch out for this.
Oh!
Nope, he's got it.
All right, he's got it. He's got it. Can be a little scary whenever you see that the Void Link's still out getting low, but Emperor Ong showing he's comfortable with the champion.
At the same time, Salvati going to wind up going onto his blue buff. Does not. He's going to wind up smiting away onto the ground.
He doesn't have items.
Yeah, he doesn't have items. I was like, he didn't hit level 2.
Why did he not hit level 2? Yeah, I was looking at that as well, and then I realized he has the blue buff, but he does not have items. I wonder if this is a special Warwick start where you try and buy more items right away, but I would doubt that. I mean, we saw Smithy do something similar in the LCS, forgot to start with items, did 1 camp or 2 before he had to back. He is going double longsword. Maybe this is a specific Warwick start. Okay, no.
He recognized, goes to the machete and the rejuvenation beat, so maybe Jitters getting the best of Salvati here. Is in the bottom lane here. Albi gonna get hooked out. He's on the receiving end of these thresh hooks this time around. The exhaust goes out on the light sledge. Early level 2 picked up by UCSB's bot lane and continuing to pressure.
And they're able to get a 3-for-1 summoner trade as well as having lane pressure now. So this is gonna be really difficult for light sledge to bully as hard as he really wants to. A great start for UCSB's bot lane. And I mean, light sledge will be fine. You're still Caitlyn. You still have the super long range to CS, but harder to push your advantage when your support keeps getting hooked.
Yeah, there's another hook, and then the snipe down to Albi. This is going to be first blood going over to Can't Carry as that Varus picks that up. And you mentioned this bully lane picked up. The Malzahar and the Caitlyn was really meant to dominate this lane phase. When you give up first blood, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen very easily.
Yeah, I wonder how comfortable Albi is on the Malzahar. He had the nerfs come in last patch where your Void Links take longer to spawn. And that was one of the things that was really annoying for a Thresh to play. And you have this really telegraphed hook, and then all Malzahar has to do is pop a minion down in front of him, and there's no chance he can land a hook on you. And now with the extra delay on the minion spawning, it looks like he's struggling. 5 Mile, though, still crushed the top lane just like last game.
Yeah, same exact matchup in the last game, same exact results it looks like right here as Liquor Kool-Aid is going to be taking a lot of damage from this Nautilus. We mentioned before, Nautilus normally gets the upper hand in this matchup early on. However, 5 Mile had the upper hand in that matchup the entire game, which is not normal.
Right, I mean, usually it's the kind of case where you're just trying to hold on as Maokai, you get that Spectre's Cowl, but with the early assist, as we see 5 Mile get locked up under turret a little bit, takes a lot of damage. Out of mana though, probably happy to recall here and teleport back. But like I was saying, last game we saw the early assist come in, and then there was the double kill that was turned around through the use of the mid lane teleport. And so, you know, Liquor Kool-Aid had a lot of tools to get further ahead on top of just having a little bit stronger of a laning champion, as we see them trying to force really heavily onto Albi. Very little synergy.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a miscoordination, but they still get it. His Can't Carry winds up picking up the kill. No Thresh Lantern clicked on. No need to get the flay down. The flash forward, easy peasy.
I mean, that just shows you how strong Thresh can be for setting up ganks. He has the flash advantage, throws the lantern a little short, guy doesn't click it, doesn't matter, that's all you need.
It also goes to show how important killing Malzahar early on and burning those early summoner spells was. Because if Malzahar's able to just flash away from that, you might wind up getting a turnaround. We saw Warwick step onto a Caitlyn trap. Because the summoners were not available, though, it was just devastating no matter how it was executed from UCSB.
Yeah, and we talked about how last game, UCLA, they crushed laning phase, and then despite their kind of worse mid to late game, they were able to still win. This game starting off totally different, 1,000 gold down already just 5 minutes into the game, and a lot of it coming through bot lane. The double kill that they've secured, you see as almost 1,000 gold lead for Can't Carry, and I guess he's gonna have to put his name to the test this game.
Well, it happened last game. They wound up getting to the late game Sivir Ricochet crit ridiculous point, and
then he tunneled on the inhibitor.
And then he could not carry. This time around, though, he's already picked himself up a serrated dirt. He's already picked himself up the Tear of the Goddess as well, so his mana issues are going to be fixed as the game kind of carries on. And it's a little bit different when you pick up the Tear on Varus as opposed to Ezreal. Normally you want to get the Tear as quickly as possible for Ezreal so you can start stacking up. Eventually you'll get the Mana Mune. At this point you want to get the Serrated Dirk and the Tear at the same time so you have a little bit extra damage, you have the lethality, and the Tear slowly becomes the Mana Mune. Doesn't necessarily need it as hard to power spike. You power spike off that lethality. But getting it at like 5 minutes in the game just means that Varus is never going to have mana issues.
Right, the fact that you basically bought what you would normally buy at 5 minutes in the Serrated Dirk plus the Tear is huge. So Can't Carry in a very, very good spot, and UCSB's comp is one that definitely shouldn't come online quite as strong until 6, as we see Savaldi trying to make a gank happen in the mid lane. Wizard of Forest going to miss that binding. He's caught out of position, ulted back, trying to greed out on that flash. Is forced to do so.
Yeah, he does wind up holding on to it for as long as possible, uses the barrier as well, but now 5 Mile, or 5 Mai, coming in. The flash forward and the depth charge. The Lux laser is there, and Emperor On's going and picking up a kill. The assist does wind up going over to Lux that landed before he got destroyed. Here is Bardley trying to step onto a Caitlyn trap here. The exhaust is out. Another Caitlyn trap in front of Bardley trying, and Albi's going to get his revenge. Picks up a kill for himself. UCLA with a quick 2-kill answer.
Huge turnaround there for UCLA. The fact that 5 Mile had saved his teleport, walked back into the top lane instead of TPing back because he had the pressure advantage, saves it to be able to turn that gank in the mid lane. A little greedy by Solari's not using his flash there to get out of the Nautilus range and get closer to his thresh with the lantern. He goes down. That gives the 2 kills over to UCLA, who are now grabbing the turret as well. As now Where's the War is caught in a 1v1 against the Warwick. Didn't even have to ult in range to do that.
He had not gone back. Looked like he was greeding to try to clear out that wave, considering they had the pressure on the Dragon Pit, but he wants it going down. No mana, no summoners to his name. They are going to get the Cloud Drake, but a little bit sloppy from UCLA as they lose their mid laner for the trade.
Yeah, both teams definitely still a little out of sorts after the first game. That was so crazy, so hype.
Struggling in the corruption into a Thresh hook. That's a lot of CC coming down as Can't Carry picks up his 3rd kill of the game. They're trying to go on the light sludge, but he's just a little too far away.
Albi's getting crushed in lane phase. I feel like, I mentioned it last game, maybe UCLA should swap their ball lane to the top side. I definitely think that would help them for this game. Get Albie out of lane, get him 6 as soon as you can, and get him roaming on the map, because this laning phase is a disaster for UCSB. As Light Sludge gets hit now.
He lands the hook through the minion there, forces the flash out of Light Sludge. This is why Bardley Try did not have the Thresh last game.
You see this game, you're like, all right, I understand the first pick Thresh priority now. As we see a roam coming in for UCSB, going up to the top side, they're going to collapse on the 5 mile. He's going to go down.
This is like Bizarro UCSB. They are crushing this lane phase. Almost a 2,000 gold advantage, 8.5 minutes into the game. CS advantages slightly in the top side, slightly in the mid lane, slightly on the bottom lane. Kills across the board. All in their favor this time around.
They're probably going to be able to grab the first turret of the game, as well as they're 3-manning down this top lane. They're going to share all this gold all around, spread the wealth, up 3K almost now.
And this is like the switch has been flipped. UCSB did not qualify for Campus Series last year. Qualified this time around. New roster except for Bardley Trying. Everybody on the roster had just kind of met each other this year. They were working on improving their gameplay. They were working on meshing together. They were working on trying to be a team. They made playoffs. They lost to UBC, and that was it. This time around, against UCLA, their old scrim partners from last year, even though they didn't wind up making in, they still helped out UCLA. They know a couple of the members from this team. UCLA smashed 2 of their teams together to kind of make a UCLA quote-unquote super team. UCSB now showing that some of that knowledge, some of that practice that has gone into it, while it took them a while to turn online in game number 2, they've already got things set up for themselves in game 1.
Right, and I feel like this is the kind of thing for UCSB where they lose that game 1 in such a horrific fashion that you really get to see what a team's made of, where either you're mentally crushed because you thought you should have won that game, but UCSB showing that's not the case. They're just hungry to get back on the map and start destroying UCLA because they're confident that they should have won the last game, so they need to win this one. And so far, like I said, they're killing it. They are up about 2K gold now. Still in a little bit of CS deficits in some places, but overall a great game so far, and they're in a great position to try and extend this more. Their team comp works extremely well together later in the game. A lot of front line, a lot of poke, a lot of utility, a lot of stuff that their team can do.
Well, I believe it was Bardley Trying, who is actually also part-time manager for the team. We got a chance to ask questions to these guys beforehand, and Bardley Trying said that the atmosphere after a loss is just don't worry about it too much. Like, it doesn't hit them too hard, and we can see that they have the fortitude to bounce back in these best-of-3 series extremely well, and we'll have to see if that translates into them actually forcing a game number 3, which we don't see all too often on our Campus Series broadcast.
And we see here Savaldi getting caught out of position. He was over the wall. They saw this kind of coming. He gets knocked up into the air, trying to turn back onto Emperor. He's going to get collapsed on and killed. Big mistake there by UCSB. They had seen the enemy roaming down through their deep vision, and they know that they could have got over the wall with the blast gun that was available there, but they don't back off. Savaldi gets caught out, clearing a control ward. And goes down for free, basically. Yeah,
so good use of blast gun there by UCLA. So they're picking themselves up just a little bit. Still about a 2,000 gold lead in favor of UCSB, but the chaos of the early game has kind of settled down ever so slightly. The CS advantages are pretty much even across the board, so really just the kills in the first tower gold are the things that are going in UCSB's favor this time around. As Lux in the mid lane has picked up a blue buff. Orianna does not have hers yet available. There's going to be another dragon spawning in a couple of minutes. We might see things settle down until that objective comes back up.
Well, the big thing there was the fact that 5 Mile basically used his teleport to make that play. He didn't teleport down, but he roamed down and teleported back to the top side. So even though the dragon is coming up in a minute and a half, they don't have the TP to match it. As we see once again, the bot lane for UCSB opening up onto UCLA.
Well, I said maybe it's going to slow down a little bit. I guess I lied to you, Mark, as Savati comes down and they want to get in that roam gank. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Emperor Ong and Wizard of Ors trying to go down to Solaris. A flash forward and the spikes come out, and Emperor Ong will pick himself up a kill. So action is still all across the map.
They're able to answer the kill, but they probably won't be able to answer the turret that UCSB is forcing down the bot side now. They're able to grab their second of the game, keep growing this gold lead, and put a lot of pressure on UCLA, going to be able to push these waves in way deeper than anything UCLA can do.
Well, UCLA trying to respond by taking as much damage onto the mid lane tower as possible. That's still only going to be a little bit below half HP as the rest of UCSB are moving up through the river towards that mid lane map area. So UCLA does have to back away, but this is UCSB making moves in the early game that we did not see in game number 1.
Right, and so we'll take a look at this mid lane play that we missed. Just starts off with a binding. They trade ultimates. That does not actually interrupt a Lux ultimate. There's no way to do that. Able to get a lot of the damage on, and then a good flash followed by Emperor Ong finishes her off with the Kha'Zix W. And the problem is that as great as a play as that was for UCLA on the bot side of the map, we saw UCSB making their own, able to grab 2 kills, I believe, as well as, or just 1, and then they grabbed the turret.
Right, towers greater than kills, especially when you wind up trading evenly for that. So now it's going to be Emperor Ong trying to get a little bit aggressive despite his team being slightly disadvantaged at this point in time in the game. The vision control from both teams is still a little bit few and far between. It looks like that UCLA is going to be trying to get a couple of wards down onto the enemy side blue buff. They just want to know when Stellaris is going to be going over there to try to donate the blue buff or get the blue buff off of a donation. And if they know Warwick is not there, even though they don't have the best ward coverage, they are pinging down the dragon. They know that the opposing team is trying to set up for that.
And this is why we stress the difference between vision control versus vision coverage. Sure, both these teams have a decent amount of wards down the map, but a lot of them are not necessarily covering the enemy's vision. So even though UCSB or UCLA has some vision control on the top side, there's still a lot of wards down for UCLA in that area, and same on the bot side. So both teams are able to spot out where the enemy is a lot of the time, but that's not slowing the action down at all.
No, and an Ocean Drake was the one that was picked up by UCSB, so they'll have a little bit of extra regeneration in their pockets, as now it looks like they, with 2 outer towers already down, are going to be trying to force the issue around this mid lane area. This is kind of like, you know, the cookie cutter textbook play. You take out the outer towers, you rotate towards the mid lane, you try to pick people off or get the tower in the mid lane. Emperor on the Savati. Yeah, trading a lot of damage here, but the Nethergrass goes out from Albi. He's going to get interrupted by the command Shockwave, but it's going to be 5 Mile picking up a kill onto Varus, so can't carry, winds up going down, and the fight's going to continue going here. Slavati will wind up taking out the Nautilus, so the tank line is down, but Light Sludge is still pretty healthy in the back line, takes down Bardley trying, so it's a 2-for-2 trade.
UCSB should have won that fight a lot harder, given how far ahead they are and the fact that they were the ones who really started it with Slavati opening it up. But some mispositionings there by the rest of UCSB. We see Can't Carry yet again getting caught out of position. He's going to go down early in this fight when really Varus is best, kind of poking people out at the end of the fight, sniping away the stragglers. And off the back of that, UCLA is going to be able to grab their first turret. It is that mid lane one that was forced low previously. And UCLA is starting to crawl back in this game, potentially.
Yeah, and this was UCSB, like we mentioned. They want to try to get some vision control down. They use the Scrying Bloom to wind up finding Emperor On. They jump down onto the Kazakhs right away. And as you said, they should have wound up winning this fight, but Can't Carry gets locked up so fast.
And he almost was able to click the Thresh Lantern to get out of there, but it actually got canceled out by the Nautilus ultimate, so he did not, was not able to use that to escape. And then hilariously enough, he gets hit by a hook, and then Nautilus gets hooked out of his hook, but the damage still goes through, so he's able to get finished off there. And it results in a 2-for-2, but most importantly was the fact that UCLA grabbed the turret after it.
And so UCLA making up for a little bit of lost gold. Now it's about a 1.5k gold advantage in favor of UCSB. Still potentially looking for that mid lane tower here is now Wizard of Wars with that blue buff. Like you mentioned before, Lux, very long cooldowns, very high mana cost. The blue buff's going to help her provide a little bit of much needed wave clear from the side of UCLA. They do have the Caitlyn as well, so the Piltover Peacemaker will provide a little bit of that, but Light Sludge has made his way up to the top lane, going to try to pressure up there where there's a minion wave shoving, while the rest of UCSB, they've grouped up towards this mid lane here. Lux is going to wind up using that final spark, but she's going to wind up getting taken down here. Stellaris just hits her with the command Shockwave. You stand in place, use an ultimate, my ultimate's going to wreck you for it. The teleport comes in here from 5 Mile. He's going to wind up going forward with the Dredge line. They lock down onto the Warwick, but that's a very tanky target to try to shut down. He will wind up falling as Light Sludge gets that kill, but they trade their own frontline tank at the same exact time, so UCSB comes out 2-for-1.
I mean, that's the scary thing about UCSB's comp is they do have so much engaged potential. You see Wizard of Wars barely mispositioned in the mid lane, gets hit by the Orianna Shockwave, and then it's go time with the follow-up from the rest of the team comp. He goes down very early, and then the Dredge line misses a target, hits the wall, still pulls him in, and then once he's there, it's like, all right, we may as well fight. And we saw that UCLA was able to trade 1-for-1 after that point, but definitely not how they wanted it to go.
Ooh, and the poke and the pressure coming up from this Orianna and the Varus combination. Light Sludge got to dodge a lot of things. You got to dodge arrows, got to dodge balls, got to dodge hooks, got to dodge absolutely everything.
Got to dodge flying wolves coming at your face.
That's also a very, very big possibility. So it's about a 3,500 gold in favor of UCSB. They've gotten themselves all of the remaining outer towers on the map, and of course,
the Rift Herald.
I really want to know. I'm going to ask these teams once we get into like the more of the grind of the playoffs, or maybe when we get into like the actual like land portion later on.
Right, we can ask them in person.
Like, why does everybody take the Rift Herald in collegiate, but nobody takes it in competitive?
I mean, just generally speaking, you don't see this much control or leads kind of in the early game.
It's true.
Because in the pro scene, you have a lot better contesting from the losing team. It's very hard to play League of Legends from behind. That's one of the things people always talk about is a team can look good when they're winning, but how do they play from behind? And I think that's one of the things the collegiate scene kind of struggles with. And so when they are behind, the only thing they know how to do is continue forcing fights, which isn't the best if you're trying to deny objectives like a Rift Herald, where you just need to be in position. The enemy team's probably not going to go for it.
Well, UCSB did demonstrate that they knew how to play from behind last game.
Right.
They were 10,000 gold deficit. They understood what their competition wanted to do. They knew that by stacking the dragons, they needed to get the Elder Dragon over the Baron buff. And they lasted almost long enough to win the game. Ooh, never seen that before. Two junglers just kind of hopping after each other. Savati just hopped into the nether grass there from Malzahar. And all right, maybe a little aggressive because he's got the Rift Herald buff now.
We talked about having to dodge flying wolves. Emperor Ong matrixes that one, jumps away, able to avoid getting suppressed, and then Savaldi's caught out with no follow-up from his team. No CC landed onto the Kazakhs. A very easy follow-up for Albi to flash into range and lock him down. And now we see UCLA trying to push for more.
Yeah, and UCSB, while they've gotten an advantage in this game, they're not invincible, so they are going to have to be a little bit careful here.
Whoa, the flash
forward into the dredge line, into the depth charge comes out, and they want it taken down, can't carry, so the Varus is gone. That's a lot of damage coming out. The command shockwave, though, lands on the Albi. The chain CC is there where the thresh hook is. Bardley trying picks up a kill for that one. So now it's a 4 versus 3 situation. UCLA are all kind of funneled into the enemy side of the jungle. They gotta be a little bit careful here. They are gonna want to getting hooked onto Emperor Ong. He gets played backwards. Bardley trying goes on a killing spree. He's gonna get shut down by Lux, who picks up a double kill off the back of that.
Not quite what was wanted.
UCSB try to re-engage, but they death sentence themselves.
And the gold lead is shrinking for UCLA. We talk about how it can get a little sloppy between these two teams, and it's happening once again. Savaldi tries to make his own play, and the strength of UCSB's team comp is not individual playmaking. The Warwick, sure, even if he lands that suppression, where's the rest of the damage coming from? You would still have the members of UCLA collapsing first, and that's really what sparked all this, was going for an individual play as opposed to going for a suppression with an Ori ball, with Lara's follow-up, and how their team comp can really work. And sure, UCLA is going to have to give up this Ocean Dragon or Cloud Dragon after all that fighting, but it's not a huge dragon to give up for getting the gold lead closer into their favor.
It's kind of more of a consolation prize that UCSB is able to get because their death timers were so staggered and because UCLA had to go back. So it's kind of like, hey, this is an opportunity for us, not something that UCLA kind of misstepped on.
And once again, Light Sludge is kind of the primary carry for his team. Last game, he got fed extremely early and was able to convert that into some advantages before the game got a little crazy. This time around, he's at 5-1-4 again, kind of skipping that Caitlyn mid-game power trough that tends to happen where before you get a lot of crit and armor pen items, you don't do a ton to frontliners like a Warwick or Maokai, who are going to be grabbing armor now. They have Ninja Tabby completed onto Savaldi. As we see the flash engage from Wizard of Wars.
Very aggressive here, but when we talked to UCLA, they said their playstyle was do dive, while Light Sludge kind of does things in the back line and carries. It looks like they're going to be diving on multiple fronts here. One side, Cosmic picks up a kill. The other side, Lux picks up a kill. At the same time, Caitlyn's going to be raining pain down on the Liquor Kool-Aid. Albi's going to come around the side. Nethergrass not available. Use that on the opposite side of the fight, but the dredge line will secure the kill there as Liquor Kool-Aid winds it going down. And UCLA, these scrappy engagements have brought them back into the gold lead.
They're pinging onto Baron. They're kind of on the wrong side of the map to really force it. They could potentially look to just push in some waves and grab turret damage, but they look like they have their eyes set on Baron. This is a little risky. UCSB is respawning in just 10 seconds. They have the Maokai teleport available in 15.
Well, it does look like that they are going to try to pressure this one. There is not a lot of vision control, and there are multiple members from UCSB kind of coming up for this one. And you mentioned Caitlyn's mid-game power, not the strongest, and even though Light Sludge has been able to finish 2 complete items, he's still not completely over that hill. Baron damage is still there. It's rather consistent, taking a lot of damage here. Savati tries to jump forward, flashes forward into the Baron. The Baron was still way too high HP, so Light Sludge picked up that kill.
But Emperor Ong died.
Oh no, Kha'Zix goes down. They're trying to finish the Baron. It's going to be Nautilus. No, it's secured. Caitlyn winds up picking it up with one last shot, but it's going to be a travesty of a fight for UCLA. That was nothing else but sloppy.
They just needed to turn and focus on fighting, and even then it would have been a little risky because they had gotten so low from the Baron. The call as a whole was extremely dangerous to go for, given how many members of UCSB were alive or soon to be coming up. And despite the fact that they give up 3 kills while doing so, the gold lead is now back in their favor, and they do have Baron off the map, so not the worst thing that could have happened.
That was the strangest kind of call I thought you would see. I would just mention that UCLA is like, oh yeah, our play style is extremely aggressive and do dive, so I figured they just turn off the Baron and just destroy them as soon as the Kha'Zix was dead, but they try to split focus and they just weren't all there. Now it's going to be UCSB, despite losing that Baron here, trying to push forward. Liquor Kool-Aid's taking a lot of damage, though. The ace in the hole comes out, and Light Sludge, 7-1 and 6, just snipes down the Varus. Liquor Kool-Aid's being chased away by the Kha'Zix. The rest of his team just has to back away, and this might be a Maokai that's left for dead here. Well, there's a Kha'Zix in the forest, and he cuts down a Maokai. His team doesn't even notice.
It makes a noise.
It does. It goes, "Urgh."
And I gotta say, I think this is one of UCSB's biggest problems is that they never quite know when enough is enough. Like, you couldn't stop the Baron, you got a bunch of kills, they want to get more, they start grouping and pushing up around the top side to get slaps on. Is now Savaldi gonna be able to pick off Emperor Ong, who's a little caught out on his own, but now he's stuck in a 1v3. Savaldi's gonna be able to go down as well.
Lantern, he will, but the last take from Lux and Malzahar will wind up picking up the kill onto him. Bardley trying to get knocked up with a depth charge here, but UCLA, I mean, you mentioned UCSB doesn't really have an off switch at this point, and UCLA, they were the team that was from behind. And you mentioned before, when teams are playing from behind, normally they try to fight too hard and catch people out just like that. To try to come back into this one, but UCLA, they've been able to take these fights, they've been able to be a little bit more organized, and they've grasped the gold lead, they grasped the Baron buff in a very sloppy effort of so, but they've also been able to pick up multiple kills. They're pushing down on this tower. They're fighting half the team and half the tower under here as the tier 2 tower will finally fall. They've already locked up Liquor Kool-Aid. He's used the Vengeful Maelstrom. They will have to pop that one a little bit early, and UCLA, off of multiple fights, off of something that started in their own top tier 2 tower, come out ahead 20 kills to 16 and about a 4,000 gold advantage.
Right, for how bad this game started for them, especially around the bot lane, the fact that Light Sludge is still so relevant is very impressive and speaks to the quality of a player that he is. And now UCLA is playing well together. Their team comp has a lot of long-range pick-off potential. They're able to snipe out any members who get low with either the Lux or Caitlyn ultimate, and they have a good enough front line in the Nautilus that they're able to keep those carries safe. And now UCLA, they're in a great spot to close this game out.
Well, the Baron buff has a couple of seconds left on that one, so we have the ability to push up from UCLA's side. Still extremely powerful. This is another game where we see a last outer tower still alive at this point. Only 2 towers taken for UCLA.
Oh, it's the bot lane.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the bot lane 5-man parties. That, you know, what's happening here?
I don't know, but I like it. I don't like those bot lane 5-man parties as they take their 3rd tower of the game. The only 2 towers UCLA had taken were those 2 middle towers, too. They still have the top outer tower here. It's now Salvati realizing very, very quickly that his jungle is on his own, trying to go down into this lane. Does want to get another grass up, but Light Sludge and Albi just continuing to push down on this tower. Now Wizard of Oz is here, but UCLA is a little bit split up here. Yeah, the flash and the play forward will wind up getting the shutdown spree onto Light Sludge. At the same time, Wizard of Oz is going to pick up a kill from Solaris, trying to rotate in from that mid lane, so a 1-for-1 trade. Yeah,
very interesting 1-3-1-1-1-3 kind of setup here for UCLA. Not really what their comp does best, but that's what they're going for. Nautilus was pushing in the top side. Kha'Zix was collecting a wave that had been pushed in the mid lane, and then the bot lane was pressuring up. And sure enough, they get picked off for the desync pressure that they were going for, as well as the fact that, I mean, Nautilus split push isn't that great. Now Emperor Ong caught out of position. He's going to get popped potentially.
Ooh, but you did have to blow the flash from the side of Liquor Kool-Aid to engage onto Emperor Ong there, so that he will wind up flashing, just staying alive from that one. But an Infernal Drake has spawned. UCSB, one thing they've had all series long has been dragon control, but it is going to be a teleport coming in from 5-my. Dredgeline does not connect, but they wind up connecting onto Salvati. They've locked him down, they've knocked him up, and they've shut him down as he winds up getting killed by Emperor Ong. Piercing arrows coming out from the back. Oh, can't carry, but the rest of UCLA is here. The Dragon's gonna be turned around on by them. It looks like the Infernal Drake will be going over to UCLA. Does UCSB want to turn on this one? It looks like they're looking for a pickoff. The hook goes out, does not land on Wizard of Oz. A lot of the Lux damage and the skill shots wind up missing. There's a lot of damage that comes out. The command shockwave's only used on 1, though. Maokai will wind up taking up another kill onto Malzahar. This is a 3v4, but there's low health bars on the side of UCSB, and they're walking towards UCLA's base. Light Sludge, though, gonna pick up the first kill of the turnaround here. The ace in the hole comes out. It's gonna land on the Bardley Trine. Emperor Ong taking down extremely low, but 5-my will pick up Solaris. Bardley Trine picks up a kill for himself, but he's gonna be falling very shortly. This Nautilus just needs to root him up and knock him down. Bardley Trine trying to use the wolves to block. The flake comes out. The lantern keeps himself alive. I don't know if Nautilus thought that the wolves are gonna finish him off or not.
So what?
But
That's still BM. Just go kill him. Now Bardley Trine might be able to get out alive here. He's very, very slow.
The
waiting
pings
for
are
his
coming
Moby
out from
boots
his own
to come
team.
in. There's his Moby boots.
5 Mile getting question mark pinged by his own team. Look at Kool-Aid showed up to just kind of like cut him up. Oh.
Walks right into Light Sludge. A little bit of ring around the rosy there.
Oh, now Liquor Kool-Aid's caught out of nowhere. He was just walking up to the top lane trying to be a distraction, but he's going to get dredge lined up. He's going to get locked up. And off the back line side comes Light Sludge. He goes netting over the wall. Wizard of Orange picks up another kill, and things are falling apart for UCSB.
This is getting a little silly for UCSB. Bardley seems like he wants to put the game on his back. I mean, he's got the most kills, tied for the most kills on his team as a Thresh. Not quite where you want the gold to be. I think Albie's got it figured out a little bit better with only 1 kill. Maybe the 5 death is not quite what you want either.
He got himself a red buff. He took that one away by accident with a Voidling.
That's never the Malzahar's fault. Unless he shouldn't have just pressed the Voidling, which might be the case.
I mean, there's also that, but the early game was all UCSB, and it was complete contrast to game number 1. We had Can't Carry 3-0-0 on Varus, and I want to go back to about 20 minutes ago when you posed this question mark of, is he going to stay true to his name? I think right now he is.
Yeah, he has definitely shown that this is not just a name, it is a description as well. And UCSB, we talk about how it's hard to play from behind. It looks like it's hard for them to play from ahead. When you give them all these options for how they can extend the game, they're not able to pick out the best one and set up team fights. They just think they're ahead and they can keep grouping and fighting, and UCLA has done a better job of knowing what their limits are and knowing when to actually look for the proper fights.
Taking the scrappy fights worked for them when they were behind because it delayed UCLA from doing things. It let them stack up dragons. It let them get to a later game win condition when they had 2 extremely late game scaling lanes. Now this time around when they're more lane focused, more lane dominant, more team fight oriented, they're still going for these scrappy engagements, but they're not coming out ahead because of it, and they're letting UCLA come back into this game. They're letting UCLA take the lead. They're letting UCLA start to run away with it, and UCLA was the team that was making more map movements in game number 1, albeit not always the best ones, but it was UCSB responding. When you play that reactive style when you're ahead, it's not going to work out in your favor because you should be the ones dictating the pace of the game.
And Baron is back on the table now. UCLA, both teams really trying to control around the mid lane, get the wave in their favor, and then one of them is going to look to open up onto this Baron. UCLA is ahead, probably going to be them.
Well, there's a bit of poke coming out from both sides. Getting killed over Peacemakers, Varus piercing arrows. Savati actually has to use the damage reduction very early and just melts the fact that Light Sludge is a 10, 2, and 11 Caitlyn. You mentioned the plateau of the mid game. This is normally where it falls off. This is also where it just gets ridiculous with Light Sludge's itemization. The command shockwave was used to pick up a kill onto Albie, but they are going to wind up picking up a kill onto Solaris after that. The Zionist Hourglass is popped. He was just a sitting duck. Maokai's been pushing in the top lane this entire time, so there's no front line, which means that UCLA, there's the do-dive mentality. They pick up a kill onto Can't Carry. Liquor Kool-Aid has shown up, but will it be too little too late? He gets knocked down by Light Sludge. 11, 2, and 13 now on this Caitlyn. Now that's left, all that's left is Bardley trying. He's the support. He's 5, 4, and 10, but he really can't do much as this inhibitor is going to fall.
20 seconds before any member of UCSB's carries are going to respawn. Warwick's coming up right now, but he might not be enough to stop this push. UCLA is thinking that they might be able to end the game now, though their creep wave is running out. Sivaldi opens up in the Wizard of Ore, is able to chunk him fairly low, but now they turn onto him. Sivaldi's going to drop, and Emperor Ong, Wizard of Ore, and 5 Mile are all very low. Oriana's coming up. It might be very hard to end the game against Ori, but they land the binding.
Oh, and there's so much damage. A triple kill for Light Sludge, and that's going to all but seal the deal here. UCLA, they came out here to play. They wind up taking game number 2 over UCSB, and they're going to send them home.
Just when you thought you might be getting your first 3-game series in the campus series, you were mistaken. That is not the case. UCLA is able to come back from their early game deficit this time around and show that they are the stronger team.
Yeah, and they mentioned beforehand that they formed this team out of like their 2 teams that they had last year because they played extremely well together. They had the very same mentality. We saw it executed extremely well on this one. They like fighting. When you're behind, fighting and trying to win some of those engagements is a good way to get back into the game, and it worked out well for UCLA.
Yeah, and I think they need to look at their macro play because a lot of how they came back in this game was just fighting. Even that last push at the very end came out just basically because Warwick missed position. They were able to land some CC onto him and blow him up. Then they just ran up the mid lane, kept fighting, kept fighting, kept fighting. you know, you want to see a team start winning a little bit more through Baron, vision control, and TP flanks and things like that.
Well, we do have a couple of replays for you guys, specifically around the fact that UCLA was able to come back in the game through fighting. Around 20.5 minutes, Nautilus teleports were very, very key to turn a bunch of these fights around, especially in the enemy jungle.
Right, this is really the big one that you want to see more of. 5 Mile able to basically isolate Can't Carry here. He gets blown up, and it's going to lead to a chase down for the rest of the team after they finish him off. Now Liquor Kool-Aid's caught out of position. He's going to get chased down as well. Light Sludge became a beast over the course of this game, despite how bad the laning phase went for him. Nice interrupt there. Going to finish off the Maokai. And this is where they ping onto the Baron. The game gets a little crazy a little bit more because they try and force that Baron. UCSB is able to come in and collapse, but they still are able to escape. Then UCSB overstays, and it's a lot of people not wanting to press that recall button.
And that was the fight that really kind of turned the tides in favor of UCLA. They were losing all up until that point, but that fight there in that jungle was really what kind of turned it around and let them take that Baron buff. You mentioned there's an extended fight and a chase sequence afterwards that did still wind up going in favor of UCLA, and that kind of pushed them over the edge because not but 10 minutes later, there was another team fight in the mid lane where they're actually able to push down, and they wind up just completely winning the game off of this.
And this is what I was talking about before. I was saying, oh, these teams are going to start grouping up for vision control around Baron. That's what's going to happen. Savaldi's just way too far forward. He just gets caught out, and then you see the chain CC that comes in against the team comp that UCLA has. You land a root, you land a binding, you put a trap underneath. He's not able to move the entire time. He goes down for free. And then the rest of the team, they see the opportunity to potentially finish off the Malzahar. They're able to do so, but it puts them out of position. And then it's an easy chase down for UCLA. They finish off the Orianna, one of your primary waves clear tools. That makes it very hard for the enemy team to walk up. Your zone control is much worse now, and you just see that they relentlessly dive here. Now Can't Carry, he's going to get dropped as well. And after this, I mean, that's all your carries dead, essentially, and you only have some frontline and support available.
And this is just the fact that UCLA, with the gold advantage that they've accrued, we saw how well they were able to control game number 1. As soon as they got it in this game, they didn't let up on it. UCSB continued to try to get those fights, but they were just not right place, right time. No front line in that last fight, as you pointed out. Just the fact of the matter that UCLA just knew how to play as a team.
Right, and I think, you know, they said their mentality is do dive. They're definitely good at that. They're great at starting fights and finding opportunities to kill people. It's just, you know, maybe they should find some other ways to close the game out as well.
Yeah, well, they're going to get another chance next week because they are moving on in the playoff bracket. And, of course, we have some great matchups coming up next week. We're moving on into the second stage of the playoffs.
That's right. UCLA will be trying to continue their winning streak when they take on their SoCal rival UCI next round in the Western Conference. These teams have a long history and were one of the featured matchups in 2016. They tied 1-1 last year, so this should be a great chance for them to prove that they are the better team this year.
Yeah, UCI is also coming off of a bye week, so UCLA might have a slight advantage since they've warmed up a little bit in this matchup here today against UCSB. But UCI, they're a giant force to be reckoned with.
Right, and then Georgia Tech is going to play Georgia Southern in the Southern Conference. GSU remained undefeated in the group stage and might be able to take Georgia Tech, a team that historically has been fairly strong, but this might be a chance for them to give them a run for their money.
We can have a lot of interstate rivalries coming down into the campus series next week in playoffs time. I love it. But that's our show for today. So thanks for watching. Be sure to tune in next week for more exciting playoffs action as we draw closer and closer to those live finals. Bottom lane and the top lane now is 5MI is going to get jumped on here, trying to take the Maokai down with him. Is it going to wind up working? The Karma teleports in. The shield is there. They turn it around, and it's a 2-for-0 in favor of UCLA.
The mid lane teleport comes up.
But it looks like UCLA might not give this one up uncontested. It teleports in there from 5 Mile. Ivern will want to pick up the kill as Emperor Ong tries to get the smite seal, but he will go down. It's going to be a kill picked up for Vayne, though, onto the Sivir, and the fight will continue. Now it looks terrible for UCSB. A double kill picked up for Vayne. A triple kill picked up. Looks like UCLA will be coming out slightly ahead in this fight. A jump forward, and the spikes go out from the Kazakhs, and UCLA are on the chase. The Inspire Shield from Karma lands on absolutely everybody. A hook goes wide as it tries to land down onto the Cassiopeia, but Wizard of Wars and Light Sludge will pick up a kill onto the Janna. Now the chase continues. It's going to be Salvati going down. Down goes Can't Carry. A double kill picked up for the Karma. Another kill picked up for the Vayne as she winds up trading her life.
And now with Baron buff up, they're going to look for their second one.
The teleport is coming in from Liquor Kool-Aid. He's been bullied around this entire time, but now it's Maokai's time to shine in the front line. runs in, locks down the Emperor on the Redemptions are coming out extremely low. Solaris actually going to be dropping out extremely low, but the Saris Embrace shield, the shields from Janna, the shields from Ivern, shields and heals from all over the place. Cassiopeia will stay alive, so all the damage done by UCLA will be negated as the inhibitor falls in favor of UCS. Looks like UCSB just want to go for this inhibitor as Can't Carry's already there. The On the Hunt has been popped. Sivers going to just try to run away. The Monsoon's used for disengage early, but 5 miles in the back of the lines here. They're trying to focus out on the Bardley trying, but he stays alive. The Mercurial Scimitar has to get popped by Light Sludge as Can't Carry's going to wind up taking down Thresh. The Ricochet crits going across the entire team. Slavati flashes out, will stay alive. Light Sludge trying to do as much damage as possible. Wizard of Wars will pick up the first kill for the side of UCLA. Light Sludge is still alive. 5 miles in the back line. They're starting to get down onto the carry. Sivir is dead. Cassiopeia is running. She gets shut down. Light Sludge gets a double kill, and UCLA, they find that this is going to be game.
20 seconds. This is going to be game for UCLA.
This is why you don't call it a comeback, Mark.
You jinxed it, Tom. Why'd you do that?
You're the one who called it a comeback, but UCLA, after all of this, after the game was in their favor, come back.
You said, don't call it a comeback.
I'm partly trying to use the Wolves to block. The Flay comes out, the Lantern keeps us alive. I don't know if Nautilus thought that the Wolves are going to finish him off or not.
So what?
But
That's still BM. Just go kill him. Now Bardley trying might be able to get out alive here. He's very, very slow.
The pings are coming out from his own team.
There's his Moby boots.
5 miles getting question mark pinged by his own team. Liquor Kool-Aid showed up to just kind of like cut him off. Oh.
Walks right into Light Sludge.